Chapter 140. Shiva was not an impulsive person. He also knew what the price of being impulsive was. But now, on one hand, it was because of the alcohol, and on the other hand, everything in this small tavern was shocking to him. Although he was the crown prince, there were at least 30 brothers who wanted him dead. If he didn't have any tricks up his sleeve, he didn't know who would get the throne in the end. Therefore, he gritted his teeth and went all out. Zhang Feng had achieved his goal. He completely used the great deception technique. Let me ask you, what are the specialties of Zhenla? Jade, top-grade jade, coral, seafood, and all kinds of fruits. Shiva reported truthfully. Zhang Feng nodded. Then what is your business? What are your main cash crops? This? Zhang Feng was a little angry. He was afraid that what he said would be different from the Zhenla of the future. However, he knew that Sawatika was an industry thousands of years in the future. When Shiva's words became sluggish, he knew that his opportunity had come. His goal would soon be achieved. I won't hide it from Master Zhang. My Zhenla's location is rather barren, so I'm very ashamed. My Zhenla's cash crop basically depends on fruits and seafood. My goal in coming to the Great Tang this time was to obtain some farming experience. Our food supply is basically not enough to feed our people. Shiva said it was very miserable, but in Zhang Feng's impression, the rice produced in that place was very expensive even in the dignified Wuxia. Why was it so difficult to grow this thing in Zhenla during the Tang dynasty? Wasn't this his opportunity? Ridiculous! Ridiculous! Zhang Feng scolded with resentment. Shiva and Dala's eyes widened in an instant. Dala asked naively, "Then may I ask Master Zhang, what's ridiculous about it?" She was a little angry. Looking at Zhang Feng's chest, she was so angry that she pouted her lips high. For a woman, that jade was something that she had to wear from birth. It had to be taken by her future husband when she got married and then passed on to the next generation. However, in this small tavern, Brother Wang treated it as a gift and gave it to this pervert. How could she be happy? However, this person was quite good-looking. Thinking of this, Dara's face turned even redder. Zhang Feng couldn't see this scene, but Shiva saw it clearly, but he didn't say anything. He was just waiting for Zhang Feng to speak. Zhang Feng didn't say anything and remained silent. Shiva instinctively glanced at the pair of earrings on Dala's ears. He gritted his teeth and gestured for her to step down. Then, he respectfully placed the earrings in front of Zhang Feng. Seeing this, Zhang Feng was furious. "What are you doing? I've already said that we hit it off, but you can't use this thing to humiliate me." Siwa and Dala almost believed him when they saw Zhang Feng pressing his earlobes under his palms as he spoke. The corners of their mouths twitched uncontrollably. "But, what an expert! We can't offend him." Shiva patiently asked, "Master Zhang, please save the people of Zhenla. If Master Zhang is willing to help, Zhenla will definitely give you a big gift." This is boring." Zhang Feng waved his hand repeatedly, but his eyes were looking at the two of them from head to toe. "About this, I'll ask you a question. In the Tang dynasty, there's a saying that goes, 'Those who rely on the mountain live on the mountain, and those who rely on the water live on the water.' Do you understand?" "There's such a saying in the Tang dynasty?" Shiva blurted out subconsciously. However, after thinking about it, he felt that something was wrong and hurriedly cupped his fists. "Master Zhang, please enlighten us. This kid is stupid." Sigh. "Such a simple thing. Fine, let me ask you, does Zhenla have a lot of water?" "Moreover, it's mostly salty and alkaline land. That place is really not suitable for planting. Even fruits can't be grown there." Shiva sighed. "That's right." Zhang Feng slapped his thigh. "You're fundamentally wrong about this matter. Idiots. Damn it. What a king idiot. You can't even figure out such a simple question. Are you uncivilized barbarians? What can be grown in that alkaline land? Do you think Elder Yuan is the culprit?" However, with a purpose in mind, Zhang Feng patiently asked again, "To your east, is it facing the sea, where flowers bloom in spring?" "Master Zhang, have you been to Zhenla?" Shiva was shocked. If he hadn't been to Zhenla, how could a small shopkeeper from the Tang dynasty know so much? Although it was not a secret, Shiva felt that an ordinary person like him wouldn't have the ability to cross mountains and rivers to go to Zhenla. Don't tell me you haven't been to Zhenla. But that's not important. I'm just asking you, right? Shiva was even more certain that Zhang Feng was that mysterious expert. He might be the kind of immortal that was described in the ancient books. At this moment, he was even more respectful and almost knelt down. After getting the answer, Zhang Feng confirmed the direction and said regretfully, "Don't any of you know the principle of relying on water to make a living?" Chapter 141. Zhang Feng really wanted to pry open this guy's head to see what was inside. How could they not know such a simple question? Although Zhenla had only been established for a short period of time, Zhang Feng understood the history of Zhenla and other places after thinking about it carefully. Now, it seemed that other than Zhenla, there were only some tribes living in groups. After thinking about this, Zhang Feng sighed. This time, he had given Lao Li and the others free labor. The seafood in the sea had long made him hungry. Let me tell you this. The sea is a treasure given to you by God. Don't you cherish it? Some of our people rely on the fish in the sea for a living, but this thing can't be eaten for a long time, or it will cause problems. Moreover, if we sell it, the merchants of the Tang dynasty will not care about our fish and shrimp, so Shiva also had his own difficulties. Of course, they knew that there were treasures in the sea. However, the merchants of the Tang dynasty were extremely crafty people, and the Tang dynasty also had a sea, so it was impossible to export this thing to the Tang dynasty. What do you usually catch? Tell me about it. Zhang Feng was interested. Shiva said in detail, just some fish and nothing else. Oh right, there are corals, but that place is too dangerous. We don't have a powerful ship like the Tang dynasty, so Zhang Feng slapped his forehead in distress. He finally knew why there was no seafood in the Tang dynasty. They only knew how to fish. What else was there in the sea except for fish? Damn, where were those shrimp? Australian lobsters? Tuna? *CK. What about the nutritious sea cucumbers, sea urchins, starfish, and seahorses? You guys are treating these things like trash? Uncivilized. Zhang Feng felt sorry for those good things. I was born in a treasure mountain, but I came back empty-handed. Zhang Feng looked up at the sky and sighed. This shocked Shiva greatly. However, no matter how he asked, he was unable to wake Zhang Feng from his thoughts. However, he gritted his teeth, took off a string of top-grade pearls from his neck, and presented it to Zhang Feng. This made Zhang Feng blind. He put away the pearl with a smile. Zhang Feng said with a straight face, "You're not allowed to spend any more." Actually, in this sea, other than fish, did you see anything else? For example, something that has long antennae, swims in the water, and jumps. Something like that? As he spoke, Zhang Feng turned around and took out a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone from the counter. He drew the general shape of a shrimp and other marine products. Both of them grew up by the sea. Although Zhang Feng could not tell them their names, the two of them exclaimed as soon as he drew. "Oh my, I know this. This is a sea bug. We can't even kill them all. They've almost eaten all the fish eggs. This is a sea crab. It's green and as big as a bowl. There are too many of them. This one is soft. What's this? This one looks like a worm. This one is soft. I know this tentacle monster. Father and the others call it an 8-legged monster. I heard that fishermen often fall victim to them." Zhang Feng drew one for every one of them. Shiva and Dara could name them. And when they heard it, they realized that these things were rampant. *CK. You treat such good things as dog shit? *CK. What a waste. Zhang Feng said seriously, "These are the real treasures of the sea. And the fish you're talking about are all dregs. Remember, you must keep what I've drawn today a secret. This is something that even the fishermen of the Tang dynasty did not know about. This is the gift of the sea." But, what's the use of these? Shiva finally asked the most important question. The key was that there were so many of these things that all of them were angry because they were the goddess of the sea. The crabs were still okay. Some people still ate them. However, there were too many bones. As for the others, They were horrified just by looking at them. Could these be Kuei treasures? Zhang Feng said again, believe me, if you give up on farming and devote yourself to the sea, I can guarantee that you will make a fortune in less than a year. These things are very valuable? Shiva was shocked. Zhang Feng nodded solemnly. Businessmen are particular about seizing opportunities and creating hype. If you believe me, I can guarantee that there will be caravans buying these things in less than 3 months. And most importantly, you have to sell these things yourselves. If you can't, who knows what you really have? You're hiding it yourselves and you want the merchants of the Tang dynasty to pay for it? Are you stupid? Zhang Feng was speechless. In this era, although there were such seafood along the coast of the Tang dynasty, there were not as many as Sawatika. That place was a paradise for seafood. And at this moment he thought of a plan. Only Lao Li and the rest were left for this plan. If this plan worked, not only would he be able to get away with the grain storage crisis in Chang'an, but he would also be able to save Lao Li's life. Zhang Feng couldn't help but look outside the door and murmur in his heart, "Old Li, you have to change your big mouth. As a brother, I can only help you up to this point. As for the grain storage issue in Chang'an, it depends on His Majesty's mood." Chapter 142. When Zhang Feng saw that there was a crazy food grab in Chang'an city, he knew that something bad was going to happen. Moreover, it was Li Yuan's birthday now, and the envoys of various countries were coming. If this thing broke out at this time, it would be really serious. He didn't know why Li Shimin chose to hoard food at this time and with such great fanfare, but it must have something to do with Old Sun. When Old Sun left in a hurry that day, he knew that this guy would definitely tell Lao Li. But from the matter of hoarding food, he faintly sensed that this big mouth wouldn't have said it in the mansion of that old guy Zhang Sun Wuji, right? Thinking about it this way, Zhang Feng was a little panicked. Hoarding food at this time, the current emperor's head was either kicked by a donkey, or he was going to make a big move. But it was obvious that this big move was related to Li Yuan. However, this had nothing to do with him. He was just worried that if this matter made the emperor angry, he would definitely kill people to deter the world. Then who would he kill? Of course, Lao Li and the other small businessmen. At that time, he was afraid that he would die before the system was activated. At this time, he unexpectedly met Sawatika. This unexpected guest made Zhang Feng applaud. He really came at the right time. Thinking of this, Zhang Feng excitedly told the two naive people about the commercial secrets related to aquatic products in detail. But in fact, this was not a secret at all. In the future, this was a common thing. It was just a business method to buy low and sell high, but it was regarded as a supreme treasure by the naive Prince Shiva. While Zhang Feng was trying his best to persuade them, the gold and silver of Shiva and his sister were all in Zhang Feng's pocket. Zhang Feng was so embarrassed that he felt a little embarrassed. "Hey, this is what I said. You have to remember it well." Shiva solemnly stood up, excitedly performed the noble etiquette with Dala, and then said solemnly, "Master Zhang, you are too serious. You are a friend of Zhenla. Zhenla will definitely worship your portrait in the future." Damn it. Was he cursing me? Zhang Feng didn't want to lose his temper. For the sake of Jining Yu, he coughed and said, "There's no need for that. We hit it off so well. Let me talk about something else. Zhenla was not suitable for growing food. It's better not to waste food and labor. If you bring real preserved seafood and precious fruits to Chang'an city and offer them to King Tang, you can just sit back and enjoy the rest of your life." Zhang Feng's words were all over the place. Shiva and the other two were so excited that they screamed. "Then may I ask, sir, how can our fruits be transported here after such a long journey? Moreover, we have tried before. It is very difficult to transport aquatic products and fruits here. Along the way, we have to go through layers of screening. We can't be careless. Basically, we can't pass Jiangnan. Everything stinks." This was a difficult problem. But how could this stump Master Zhang? He waved his hand and said, "I was wondering what kind of problem it was. So it's just this trivial matter? I'll tell you. Have you heard about the water wheel that the Tang dynasty used to support Tubo? As long as you can please His Majesty, he will reward you with 100 water wheels. Then, you can transport fruits and aquatic products to Chang'an, and as I said. And those aquatic products are still alive and kicking. Really? Xianxia is at least tens of thousands of miles away from Chang'an. What kind of thing can transport those things here? Everyone in the world knew about the water wheel. How could they not know? But that thing was a drought-resistant thing. How could it be used here? Zhang Feng rubbed his hands slyly. Shiva immediately knew what was going on. He hurriedly undid an emerald belt from his waist and handed it to Zhang Feng reluctantly. He said with a smile, "Master Zhang, this belt." Before Shiva could tell him the origin of the belt, Zhang Feng exclaimed, "Good stuff." Then, the belt appeared on Zhang Feng's waist. Where did this thing come from? Zhang Feng was too lazy to ask, and he was too lazy to listen. Wasn't this a whole piece of emerald that was hollowed out and carved out? Although it looked good, it was a waste of God's gift if it was on you. He put away the belt. At this time, Zhang Feng said seriously, "Prince Shiva, don't take this thing out again. I, Zhang Feng, don't care about such vulgar things. However, this emerald is good stuff. I like it very much." Without waiting for Shiva to speak, Zhang Feng also knew that it was time. Why did this grandson have a small warehouse on him? The table was full of things. How could he take them out from his body? Cough, cough. Listen carefully. This water wheel was invented by me. What? Is what Master Zhang said true? Shiva exploded. He knew that this thing was very precious. They had never even seen the real thing. But now, in Chang'an city of the Tang dynasty, someone in a small tavern in the city said that he made this thing? If someone else had said that, Shiva would definitely have chuckled and spat in his heart. But after seeing Zhang Feng's wine pot and reclining chair, and then hearing Zhang Feng's mysterious business lecture, Shiva suddenly felt that he had hit the jackpot today. He had met a god. Chapter 143. Zhang Feng was so embarrassed that he was about to get cancer. Being stared at by two dark monkeys with shining eyes, no matter how thick-skinned he was, he could not help but feel flustered. He hastily coughed and said, "You should think about this matter carefully. As for the water wheel, if you understand, I will tell you how to transport seafood and fruits, as well as the method of preserving freshness. Now, I will tell you another way to make the country prosper. Are you interested?" "Yes." Shiva wished he could strangle Zhang Feng's neck and shake out the things in his head. Seeing that Zhang Feng was finally not long-winded, he was so excited that his muscles were cheering. What a good man! If he could solve the problem of hunger and make Xianxia prosper, then everything else was nonsense. Seeing Shiva like this, Zhang Feng smacked his lips and said with waning interest, "Actually, you really deserve to die. I remember there is a small island south of where you live, about 10 days by boat. That island is rich in spices. That thing is everywhere. You only need a piece of broken knife to exchange for a big bag. Do you know how much that thing can be sold for in Chang'an?" "How much?" Shiva and Dara's eyes were wide open. 100 coins. A whole 100 coins. Hiss. Shiva could not help but gasp. He knew that place, but he only knew that those things could only be used to smoke rooms and mosquitoes in summer in his palace. Most of the time, the people cut them for firewood. But now, when he heard Zhang Feng's words, Shiva's face turned red. Damn it. He had wasted so many things for nothing. Not to mention selling a bag for 100 coins, even if he could sell a big cart for 100 coins, or exchange it for a cart of food, he was already so excited that he was about to cry. After all, up until now, most people in Xianxia were basically hungry and full. Thinking of this, he could not help but want to beat himself to death. Hurriedly grabbing Zhang Feng's hand, Shiva asked excitedly, "Master Zhang, may I ask if those things you mentioned are sold in Chang'an? I don't want to wait a moment longer. You should also know the difficulties my people are facing now." In the depths of his emotions, this guy actually acted out a sad scene, wiping his snot and tears on Zhang Feng's sleeve. Zhang Feng hurriedly pushed him away in disgust. He seriously doubted whether this guy had some kind of genes. Didn't Sawadi Ka have such fetishes? At the thought of this, Zhang Feng's entire body was covered in goosebumps. Okay. Stop crying, you're a man. Since this old man has said it, The spit of a man of the great Tang is a nail in his mouth. As long as you shut your mouth, this old man will tell you right now. Zhang Feng was so embarrassed that he had cancer of embarrassment. It was fine if he didn't think about his past life, but when he thought about it, Zhang Feng instantly exploded. He hurriedly shook off Shiva and hid on Dala's bench, seeking comfort. Dala was so embarrassed that his face was as red as a ripe peach. I'll write it down for you. Otherwise, with your IQ, I think you'll forget it all before you go out. Zhang Feng flung Shiva's hand away in disgust. He glared at Shiva, who was sitting far away from him. Then he wrote and drew on the paper as he spoke. Spices are more popular in the aristocratic circle of the Tang dynasty. Now, the main source of spices in the Tang dynasty is Persia, Shui Yantuo, and Dashi, which is thousands of miles away. However, these spices are not as pure as your Jinlas. But remember, there are a group of Russians and native monkeys living there. As for whether you can get them, it depends on you. Also, look at this hell flower I drew. You have to stay away from this thing. If you have any evil intentions and bring it to the Tang dynasty, I can guarantee that not only will you not be able to earn money, but that will also be the day of your Jinla's destruction. Hell flower. Prince Jinla nodded his head like a chicken pecking rice. He had seen that stuff before. Eating it would make people go crazy, and it would also make people lose their minds. That stuff had basically been burned to death. However, seeing Zhang Feng mention it so seriously, Shiva was so shocked that he broke out in cold sweat. Zhang Feng's calligraphy was very good. Although it could not be compared to a calligraphy master, it had its own unique flavor. As for whether Jinla could understand it or not, he didn't care. He wrote the words, Zhang Feng, at the end in big letters. Then he looked at Shiva as if he was looking at a monster. I'm giving this to you because we're fated to be together. Do as you see fit. Also, remember one thing. I remember that you have this thing on the Jinla beach, right? As Zhang Feng spoke, he took out a fist-sized piece of black and slightly yellowish salt ore from the counter and asked. Prince Jinla looked at the salt ore and said doubtfully, Isn't this thing poisonous salt? I have a lot of it. Is Master Zhang interested? Interested? Zhang Feng's teeth were hurting. He bared his white teeth and asked, I can eat as much as you have. Chapter 144. Siwa and Dala looked at each other. They looked at Zhang Feng as if they were looking at a monster. This thing had troubled them for generations. Because of this thing, they could not grow food. Many things could not be grown. Moreover, there were so many of these things that it made one's hair stand on end. They could not eat it. Not to mention that not a single blade of grass grew nearby, even animals did not dare to come close. But now, this mysterious Master Zhang actually wanted it? That's really too good. Deal. It was rare for Siwa to not be shy. He grabbed Zhang Feng's hand, scaring Zhang Feng so much that he bounced up reflexively and almost jumped into Dala's arms. Don't. It's improper for men to touch each other. Please respect yourself. I'm a very self-disciplined person. Zhang Feng waved his hand repeatedly. Then he glanced at Dala, coughed, and sat still. He regained the demeanor of an expert and said, I want to ask, do you have a lot of these things there? Siwa sighed. Master Zhang, are you testing my sincerity? I know that Master Zhang must have been to Jinla. Otherwise, it would be impossible for you to know so much about Jinla. Don't you know that there is at least an area of a city in the south of Jinla with this thing? Every year, we spend a lot of manpower and financial resources to manage this thing, but this thing is like the stones in the ground. There are so many of them that it makes one's hair stand on end. This is the main reason why our people can't fill their stomachs. I didn't expect Master Zhang to like this thing too. If that's the case, I'll make the decision and give it to Master Zhang. But my country's strength is limited, and this thing is rich in poison. So, if you want it, you can dig it up yourself. No matter how much you want, Jinla will open the door and give it to you. He was not stupid. As the prince of a country, he had seen Zhang Feng's magical ability. If he still did not know that Zhang Feng was after their thing, then he would really be a pig. Zhang Feng's head was a little twisted. He thought that this guy was easy to fool, but he did not expect that he would be led into a ditch. Could he go to Jinla? Could he go? He couldn't go. If he did, it would no longer be a treasure. It was quite simple to refine this thing. As long as his people dared to go, the art of making salt would definitely be leaked in less than half a year. Zhang Feng's mouth twitched. His expression didn't change as he glanced at Shiva and said, I have some use for this thing, but it's not that useful. I know a merchant who buys this stuff. If you want to sell it, I estimate that a cart of this stuff can be exchanged for 10 caddies of grain. Do you want to trade? Zhang Feng spoke without blushing or panting. After saying that, he couldn't stand Shiva anymore and took a sip of wine from his bowl. Then, he put away the paper on the table and prepared to leave. However, at this moment, Shiva seemed to have realized that if he didn't agree to this matter, then everything they had discussed before would be for nothing. Because until now, Master Zhang only told him that those things could make him rich, but he didn't tell him the ultimate goal. He also knew that this poisonous salt seemed to be an additional condition. Although he didn't know what Zhang Feng wanted this thing for, he didn't ask. A cart of trash could be exchanged for 10 caddies of grain. That was just as saying 100 carts could be exchanged. Heavens! Thinking of the countless poisonous salts, his eyes burned with passion. He gritted his teeth and pressed down on the corner of the letter, saying, Master Zhang, let's talk things over. If you want me to give you a few carts of this thing, it's not a problem. It's not about the grain or not. If you really want to do business with this thing, then I'll be serious. A cart of 10 caddies of grain? I'll take it seriously? Zhang Feng smiled and sat down again. He patted Shiva's shoulder that was full of dust and said, That's right. This thing is actually not worth much. I'm just testing you to see if you have the sincerity to do business with Xianxia. I can guarantee that the people I know are powerful enough to take all of the things I mentioned before. But as for everything else, you'll have to discuss it yourselves. I just saw you because of fate. As he spoke, he removed Shiva's hand and crumpled the paper into a ball under Shiva's and Dala's fierce gazes. Dala didn't care about anything else. Although he was blushing, the beauty hidden under his dark skin made him look a little more pleasing to the eye. Otherwise, Zhang Feng wouldn't have been so unscrupulous. Master Zhang, my brother and I came to Chang'an and to solve the grain problem of Xianxia. Today, we saw so much grain in Chang'an city and heard that His Majesty the Tang Emperor is stockpiling grain. Therefore, we have to discuss this matter seriously. We will tell my father everything that happened today. This matter must be approved by him personally. You should discuss this matter as soon as possible. After all, I've only met that businessman twice. Maybe he will go to Daoist on that day. He had finally taken the bait. Lao Tzu was going to become the savior of Sawatika. Lao Tzu, I've added another bargaining chip for your life. I hope your bad temper doesn't kill you now. Otherwise, Lao Tzu would really be alone in the Tang dynasty. Chapter 145. Achoo! In Taiji Palace. At the same time, Li Shimin sneezed loudly. He was originally copying Zhang Feng's handwriting, but now, the brush drew a long horizontal line on the paper. Li Shimin frowned. He muttered, Who is talking about me? Second brother. You are being paranoid. Zhang Sun Wugo glared at Li Shimin and helped him put on a cloak. You have been standing for 6 hours. Don't tire yourself out. Li Shimin put down the brush and patted the back of Zhang Sun Wugo's hand. He gently hugged her from behind and said with incomparable tenderness, Guanyin maid, what do you think of Zhang Feng? Zhang Feng. Zhang Sun Wugo thought for a moment. He glanced at the paintings in the study and said calmly, Although I have never seen this person before, for this person to be able to write such a world-shaking poem that even the great scholars of the present age and the great literary heroes are unable to create, this in itself is a miracle. Moreover, the drought in Longyu was easily resolved by him while drinking and chatting merrily. He also used a small price to make Tubo and Tuyuhun fall into his endless schemes. Even if Zhuge Liang was alive, he could not compare to this. However, though his status is low after all, if second brother insists on recruiting him now, I feel that it is still somewhat lacking in consideration. No! Guanyin maid. Li Shimin turned Zhang Sun Wugo's graceful body around and said, I know that the time is not right. He himself said that the time is not right. Therefore, I want to send Xingqian, Qingke and to the tavern to learn his unique way of governing and the way of business. What do you think? Zhang Sun Wugo's face was filled with shock as she hurriedly interrupted Li Shimin. Although this child's abilities are exceptional, he is still a commoner. If the emperor wants to send the crown prince and the other princes to the tavern, what will happen to the court? This will shake the entire country. But Li Shimin's face was full of bitterness. He was anxious to say something. However, before he could say anything, Empress Zhangxuan's little hand pressed against his lips. Second brother, I know that you want Chengqian and the others to learn a few more things as soon as possible, but have you thought about Hongwen Guan and Imperial College? Do you want to be condemned by all the civil officials in the court? Seeing Li Shimin's gloomy expression, Zhang Sun Wugo gently said, This concubine knows that in the imperial court, you are a lonely warrior. You long for someone to stand in your shoes and help you without a shred of selfishness. This concubine also knows that Zhang Feng's position in your heart has already surpassed everyone else. But this matter needs to be taken slowly. At the very least, Zhang Feng still needs a noble title. Li Shimin had a flash of inspiration. Yes. We will immediately issue an edict to bestow him a noble title. This way, all the civil and military officials in the court will not have a single word of complaint. Your Majesty! Zhang Sun Wugo hurriedly blocked the agitated Li Shimin. What name are you using? Right now, the matter of Tubo cannot be exposed. Moreover, the true effects of the water will have not been revealed. Even if the contribution of the salt-making technique is meritorious, this is not the time. Li Shimin vexed and viciously broke the red sandalwood jade brush. He sighed, It is rare for us to have a close friend. However, we can't do anything right now. Only something as insignificant as money can express one's sincerity. However, Guanyin servant, you should know that Zhang Feng's goal is not money. If he wants to be rich enough to rival a country, then the method of cooking locusts, as well as the mysterious wine and delicacies, which one of these would not allow him to make a fortune. However, he did not. And perhaps it is because he is too lonely. At this time, Li Shimin somewhat believed Zhang Feng's words. He was an old monster who had lived for 5,000 years. However, when he thought of his exaggerated and indifferent way of speaking, it was completely to talk about loneliness. It was because he was lonely, endlessly lonely, that he told me everything. But how could Li Shimin not know the importance of each and every one of these things? If he really wanted to make money, he could completely know the value of the water wheel, and it was not only so much. However, the money given to him, he did not even count it and took it into his arms? It seemed that he was greedy for money, but in fact he was hiding his loneliness. Was this the attitude of looking at the overall situation? When can we have such charm? Originally, he was prepared to find Zhang Feng earlier today. However, the trivial matters of Chang'an city, as well as the matter of the foreign envoys, made him extremely busy. Only now did he have some free time. However, when he was free, his mind was full of Zhang Feng. At this time, Li Shimin had an urgent hope. He urgently hoped that Zhang Feng could be by his side and let him stand in the main hall of the political announcement palace. He wanted to let those decadent and useless civil officials see that the Tang dynasty was not only decadent people like them who only cared about their own interests and did not have the slightest intention to improve and innovate for the Tang dynasty. Thinking of this, he looked at the fiery sunset outside the window. Li Shimin put his hands behind his back, like a lonely wolf, looked up at the sky and said, Guanyin servant, follow me out of the palace to see that bastard. Chapter 146. In the end, Empress Zhangsun still didn't follow Li Shimin. This time, Li Shimin didn't bring anyone with him. He brought Xiao Gizi and Wei Shuyu's team of Jinwu guards, changed into the gorgeous clothes of merchants, and turned into the East Market through the Yanxi Gate. At this moment, Zhang Feng, who was thirsty, paid the price of a poem by Li Bai and completely exploited Shiva and Dala. Then he waved his sleeve and said, I'm tired. Please go back. The two trembled with fear as they held Zhang Feng's calligraphy. They kicked the servants who were pretending to be asleep awake and then bowed and left Zhang Feng's store. Shiva even tactfully closed the door for him. When he hid behind the door and heard the sound of footsteps gradually fading away, Zhang Feng's mouth was about to reach his ears. I'm rich. I'm really rich. Jade. They're all top-grade jade. Damn, these idiots. Although they're stupid, they're really rich. Looking at the table full of jadeite and other valuable items, Zhang Feng concluded that if he sold these things, he would definitely be able to amass an unimaginable amount of wealth in a short period of time. But was he greedy? Greedy Mias? He was a collector. He liked this name. He couldn't bear to see good things being covered in dust. Anything in the hands of others was equivalent to asking for his old life. Any one of these things, if passed down to the future, would be a priceless treasure. He was thinking, if he could return to the modern world after the system was activated, should he bring Lao Li and the others to see the modern Chang'an city? Presumably, Lao Li and the others would be so excited that they would suddenly have a heart attack, right? While looking at the table full of treasures and laughing foolishly, Zhang Feng didn't notice that the door of the tavern was opened again. A voice that was cloaked in the setting sun appeared in his ears. Shopkeeper? Who are you trying to rob? Why are there suddenly so many treasures? The person who came was Li Shimin. After seeing the treasures on the table, he was envious. He couldn't help it. He was poor. In the Tang dynasty, he needed money. Moreover, the Emperor Emeritus's birthday was about to be celebrated. He was having a headache about money. Now, seeing the table full of money, his eyes couldn't help but light up. But at this moment, Zhang Feng was like a hen protecting its chicks. He pounced on the table and stuffed all the treasures on the table into his clothes, leaving only the string of pearls and some small parts outside. Seeing this, Li Shimin's, Yo, Lao Li, I thought you were caught in the prison. Zhang Feng laughed and threw all the treasures on the floor inside the counter as if they were rubbish. Then he clapped his hands. Tavern Feng. He took out a jug of fine wine from the counter and said, What's going on today? You don't seem to be in a good mood. Ignoring Zhang Feng's jesting, Li Shimin looked at Zhang Feng with interest, looking him up and down. Zhang Feng was a little angry. He had just experienced Sawadika. There were still many shadows in his heart. He didn't expect that before he could recover, he would be stared at by Lao Li again. It would be strange if he didn't explode. Zhang Feng coughed. Li Shimin retracted his gaze playfully. Looking at a dropped earring on the table, he teased, So, you brat, you robbed Yan Lai restaurant? Get lost. Zhang Feng, who was embarrassed into anger, shamelessly put the earring in his pocket and said, If I had that ability, I wouldn't have opened a small tavern. By the way, why are you here? Where are they? Seeing that Zhang Feng didn't say anything, Li Shimin didn't bother to ask. They're all busy stocking up grain now. They're very busy during this period of time. Zhang Feng was puzzled. Then why are you so free? You still have the leisure to come here? Tell me, did you get into trouble? Waiting for me to bail them out? He didn't believe Li Shimin's words when he was eating. But Li Shimin didn't intend to say anything about this. This matter did go wrong, but fortunately, Lord Zhangsun will take care of everything. We're fine for the time being. We're fine. That's good. Lao Li, you have a good life. Now that you've met me, you see, everything is going smoothly. Li Shimin rolled his eyes at Zhang Feng. Don't be confused. Seriously, do these things belong to those Zhenla messengers? Don't say no. This jade is a special product of Zhenla. It's precious. You know, this earring can be sold for more than 10 taels of gold in the circle of noblewomen. With Li Shimin's sharp eyes, how could he not know who the people who just went out were? But looking at their clothes, other than the clothes, the rest of the ornaments were all gone. Even Prince Zhenla's belt and Princess Zhenla's head ornament were gone. What could this mean? This guy must have cheated them badly. Seeing that his lie was exposed, Zhang Feng stopped pretending. He smiled and said, When I saw so many people stocking up grain in Chang'an city, I thought something had happened to you. I was thinking of getting some money and using my connections to bail you out. I didn't expect that my efforts were in vain. However, Zhang Feng changed the topic and said mysteriously, Lao Li, I have a big business deal. Do you dare to do it? Chapter 147. Li Shimin's eyelids twitched. He forcibly suppressed the urge to ask Zhang Feng how to solve the predicament in Chang'an city and his father's conflict. He narrowed his eyes and asked, "What kind of deal is so mysterious? Is it related to Zhenla?" As expected of Lao Li, his brain was better than Old Wei and Lai Sun's. "I guessed it from those fools." Li Shimin curled his lips. "Even a fool could guess it, okay?" However, Zhang Feng's words were very effective on him. It was very strange. There was no shortage of flatterers in the court, but Li Shimin was annoyed when he saw them. He wanted to kill them, but he was looking forward to Zhang Feng's praise. And it was the kind of praise that was full of sarcasm. This made Li Shimin very happy. He cupped his hands and personally took a jar of wine from the counter. Without waiting for Zhang Feng's instructions, he opened the mud seal and drank from the jar. "What kind of friendship do we have? Although we have never been on the battlefield, but it can be considered a friendship of life and death. Everything that I have now is all because of your guidance. Just tell me, what kind of deal? I've been waiting for you, Lao Li." Zhang Feng pulled Li Shimin to sit beside him. He hooked his arm around Li Shimin's neck and said, "I'll tell you. Do you know why Zhenle's people were like that just now?" "Oh right, I forgot. How did you manage to trick them into giving you something so precious?" "Trick?" Zhang Feng glanced at Li Shimin and immediately showed a look of disdain. "Do you think I, Zhang Feng, relied on trickery? I relied on my own ability, okay? But this stupid prince is really a King rich idiot." He took out the jade pendant on Dele's neck and shook it, making Li Shimin want to snatch it. "This is the filial piety money I gave them when I pointed them out. I earned it with my own ability. Then tell me, how did you point them out?" Li Shimin was interested and forgot many of his troubles. It seemed that only in this small tavern could he really show his true nature. "Do you know what Zhenle's specialty is?" Zhang Feng asked mysteriously. Li Shimin was really confused. What did Zhenle produce? Every year, the tributes were basically ordinary goods. In that place, people were so poor that they couldn't even afford to wear pants. What else could they offer? But seeing Zhang Feng's expression, Li Shimin couldn't help but become excited. "Did you find something new?" "Yes. Let me ask you, Old Li, have you ever heard of relying on the mountain to live off the mountain and the water to live off the water?" "I've heard of it. And this matter has been taught by the Han people for generations." Li Shimin was sure. Alas. Zhang Feng sighed. "Do you know that idiot Zhenle doesn't even know this? Don't you think it's infuriating? Born in a treasure mountain, but starved to madness. I think in the whole world, Zhenle is so naive and cute. Just tell me, what did you find?" Li Shimin didn't wait for Zhang Feng to finish his long-winded speech and hurriedly poured him a bowl of wine and asked, "Don't worry. Listen to me first. This matter is related to the long-term supply of table salt and the important point of whether the Tang dynasty can firmly control the surrounding countries." "So powerful?" Li Shimin was also shocked. He hurriedly put down the irritation in his heart. He listened carefully. Zhang Feng was not in a hurry now. "What do the coastal areas rely on for a living, Lao Li?" "Fishing. The coastal areas of the Tang dynasty rely on fish for a living. Isn't Zhenle doing the same?" Zhang Feng shook his head and asked again, "Then what do they catch?" "Fish, just fish. Is there anything delicious in the sea?" "No way." Zhang Feng wanted to vomit blood. "The sea. The coastal areas. What kind of place was that?" "That was a treasure bowl. Let me tell you, the most worthless thing in the sea is fish. Do you think those skinny, salty fish taste good?" Li Shimin shrugged and sighed. "You may not know. Sea fish are basically an important way to extract salt from the sea. The inland relies on this salt to survive. What do you think these sea fish mean?" "Wrong." Zhang Feng looked at Li Shimin as if looking at a fool and said, "I really doubt you. Are you a businessman? Can't you think this way? Let me tell you, the most worthless thing in the sea is fish. And those things that you think are the most unsightly are the real good things." While talking, Zhang Feng took out a piece of paper again. He seriously drew the shape of a sea cucumber on the paper and said, This thing is called sea cucumber ginseng. You know it, right? I know this. But what does it have to do with this? Is this sea cucumber also a tonic? Zhang Feng exploded. It's more than a tonic. This thing is a great tonic. Do you know? If you eat too much of this thing, it can replenish qi and blood, and also nourish the kidney. Let's not talk about other benefits for the time being. Look at this. While talking, he drew lobsters again, especially Australian lobsters, seahorses, starfish, and so on. These are all tonics. When some things are combined with each other, it will be a medicinal herb. Extremely precious medicinal herbs. And this shell, this thing, grind it into powder, add some medicinal herbs, and add some pearls. It's a supreme treasure for women to beautify and whiten their skin. Zhang Feng's saliva flew everywhere as he talked. In the end, he tinkered with a set of things for the beauty and skin care of later generations. And Li Shimin's whole body froze. Chapter 148. If it was before, Li Shimin would definitely think that Zhang Feng was talking nonsense after drinking. He would naturally take it as a joke. However, this was Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng, who had once saved him. How could his words be false? However, thinking about it, Li Shimin felt particularly awkward. Such a good thing, how could he not recognize it in front of him? How could he not feel uncomfortable? Moreover, Zhang Feng had just said that there was a treasure mountain in Jinla. Wouldn't Li Shimin be the same? Li Shimin's face was about to turn green. He stared and asked, "Then, do you mean that there are treasures everywhere by the sea? Are you questioning the current emperor's blindness?" No, no, no. You don't dare to say that. Zhang Feng hurriedly stuffed Li Shimin's mouth with a fried yellow crab. If someone were to hear this, they would be dug out of their graves and whipped their corpses. Although Zhang Feng had no relatives in this world, he was afraid. In this feudal society, he did not dare to be careless. Lao Li, I say you're stubborn. If you continue to talk about the state affairs and the current emperor so foolishly, our fate will end here. Who is that? That's the current emperor. The good emperor who almost knelt down to the people for the sake of the people. Take a lantern and look for him. Look through the history books and see which emperor is better than the current emperor. Zhang Feng's method of giving a piece of meat with a stick made Li Shimin extremely uncomfortable, but he also enjoyed such treatment. He did not know if he was cheap or not. But at this time, it was no longer important. He was short of money. Now, as long as he heard that he could make money, he would want to take it as if he was crazy. Moreover, Zhang Feng said it in such a mysterious and dignified manner. Could it be that this little Jinla is so important? What you just said, I believe there are also some in the waters of the Tang dynasty, right? Why should Jinla benefit while the people of the Tang dynasty suffer? Before you do, don't they always say that they want to stimulate the economy and set up cooperatives? Why is that? I said you're stupid. You're still a god, you're really stupid. Zhang Feng was filled with disdain. Let me ask you, this ocean is only so big, but how many people did the Tang dynasty have? If it was prosperous, the Tang dynasty would have to rely on the sea for the rest of its life. What about the next generation? The next generation, they ate up everything in the sea. What are you eating now? Are you stupid? Even rabbits don't eat the grass near their burrows. Why do you always want to eat all the grass around your nest? Wait for the hunters to come and become a delicacy? Li Shimin was once met with a supercilious look. But this time, Li Shimin was not angry. Instead, he was incomparably shocked. Zhang Feng was very direct. They had enough to eat for the rest of their lives, but what could they leave for their descendants? Just leave behind a mess? How could they be immortalized? They would go down in infamy for 10,000 years. Li Shimin could not help but break out in a cold sweat. His forehead was full of sweat. Priceless advice. Li Shimin smiled bitterly. I've read poetry and books, but I've forgotten such an obvious truth. As he spoke, Li Shimin stood up solemnly and bowed to Zhang Feng. And Zhang Feng accepted it happily. Li Shimin could understand this truth, and he was very satisfied. At the very least, if there were more such merchants, the Tang dynasty would not only last for 300 years, and there would be a lot more legacies that could be left behind. This was what Zhang Feng was most satisfied with. He was not satisfied. When the time came, he would buy Australian sponges from abroad for a few hundred yuan per caddy. This thing was not valuable, but he could only watch it be cheated. Why? Because it was extinct. Because of those idiots in history, it was extinct. The future generations wanted to eat it. Sure. Please go abroad and buy it for tens or hundreds of times the price. If Zhang Feng's plan was implemented with Lao Li, Zhang Feng could foresee that in the future, the whole world would be bought by the Tang dynasty and the people of Wuxia. After it was all bought, sorry, but do you want to eat it? Lao Tzu could sell as much as he wanted. You don't want to buy it? Get lost. That was heroism. Wuxia lacked such heroism. That heroism was originally there, but it was obliterated by the extension of history. Zhang Feng's appearance was to prevent Wuxia from suffering any humiliation in the future, although he did not have any illusions. But the moment he transmigrated to the Tang dynasty, he had such a dream. Since he was here, the most prosperous Tang dynasty in history. Then, let the Wuxia people in their heyday, let them surpass everything, cross the ocean, and let the flag of the Tang dynasty be planted on every inch of land in the world. Let them be free labor for the Tang dynasty. Only then would it be worthy of Zhang Feng's title of the Emperor of Eternity. The Emperor of Eternity who truly completed the unification of the world, not the half-baked Emperor Qin Shi Huang and Emperor Wu of Han. At this moment, Li Shimin was sighing. His heart was spreading and burning. And Zhang Feng was the same. At this moment, he suddenly felt that the world in the future was no longer so narrow. He was no longer alone. Which chivalrous person was not a lonely fighter? It was just that he let the trajectory of history, under the premise of normal operation, let him turn faster and farther. That was what he wanted to do in the future. Since he was here, then he had to leave some memories. For Wuxia, he would leave a thick and colorful mark. Chapter 149. Li Shimin was very shocked. Such a brilliant plan. This was really a plan to eradicate the family. This plan might be carried out for several generations or even dozens of generations. But in his hands, he was the person at the helm of this plan. He controlled the future of this plan. This was even more exciting for his dream of a golden age where all countries would pay homage to him. Although he knew that he would not live until then. But at this time, he could imagine the expressions of those foreigners who would kneel in front of his tomb and tell him about his deeds thousands of years later when all countries came to pay homage to him. Li Shimin could not help but laugh at his fantasy of a golden age. And Zhang Feng did not disturb him. He knew that Lao Li was enlightened. This was a kind of sublimation. It was also a part of his plan. The great Tang needed merchants like this. These honest merchants lacked the scheming and deceit of the later generations, only a patriotism. This was rare and commendable. He had simply helped the lost find the lighthouse in their hearts at the right time. Hey, Lao Li, are you thinking about the future? Zhang Feng stared at Li Shimin and asked with a smile. Li Shimin's dream was shattered. Not only did he not blame Zhang Feng, but there were also traces of tears in his eyes. Yes. I see the future, no. 10 years later, the golden age of the Tang dynasty. That is what we want to see the most. When we go to every corner of the world, we only need to show the name of the Tang dynasty, and the whole world will bow down to us. What a glory this is! We are no longer the four-legged sheep that others say, and no longer the target that anyone can bully. They can only carve 2 words in their bones. The Tang dynasty. But, what a pity! There are too few people in the Tang dynasty who can have such awareness. Li Shimin shook his head. He abruptly picked up the wine jug and poured it over his head to hide the tears at the corners of his eyes. That's quite a lot. Zhang Feng patted Li Shimin's shoulder and said, "Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, heavenly lightning struck a forest, and a huge fire burned in the forest for more than 100 days. There were flames everywhere in the air, just like the stars in the sky. Among them, one of the sparks was the size of a fingernail at first, but it drifted and drifted, and in the end, it was only the size of a needle tip that was about to extinguish. When he was about to die out, he landed on a withered grassland. Then he slowly used the remaining heat of his ashes to ignite the entire grassland. Li Shimin listened attentively. It was as if he was the spark in front of him. Li Shimin cried out in surprise when he heard that spark had used its last bit of heat to ignite the entire grassland. And then? Zhang Feng glanced at Li Shimin and patted him on the shoulder. After that, the grassland burned for an entire year. The soil was burned until it was bright red. Everyone shook their heads and sighed. This place could no longer grow a single grass seed. However, after a rain, everyone was shocked to find that this grassland had once again bloomed with even more luxuriant weeds than before. This? Li Shimin was shocked. Zhang Feng looked at him, dipped the brush in the ink box, and waved the brush on the gray-white wall. A single spark can start a prairie fire. The spring breeze moistens things silently. Fire can start a prairie fire silently. Although it was a poem that was pieced together, Li Shimin was shocked. Looking at the words on the wall, he couldn't help but be shocked. A single spark can start a prairie fire. The spring breeze moistens things silently. Fire can start a prairie fire silently. God. Zhang Feng this? Lao Li, I hope that you must pass on this sentence for generations to come. Don't underestimate a single spark. Its momentum of starting a prairie fire is unstoppable. No force can stop it. However, it is a catalyst that burns rotten traditions, breaks and establishes, and moves forward. Li Shimin choked. The spark. Right now, what his imperial court needed the most was a spark of fire. Everyone was adhering to the rules. How could they let the cavalry of the Tang dynasty take another step forward? Although there was a powerful strategy and an unprecedented planning ability, no one carried it out. This was the momentum of starting a prairie fire. This was how the lofty skyscraper toppled. Zhang Feng, Lao Li, am unable to repay your kindness to me. Don't say that you will repay me with your body. I will kill you. Zhang Feng was speechless. He hurriedly supported Li Shimin's kneeling posture and said speechlessly. Zhang Feng's words perfectly resolved the crisis. Because just now, on the beam of his house, Wei Shuyu's crossbow was already aimed at him. That's enough, Lao Li. Let's not be pretentious. Every one of us has a role to play and a mission that we need to complete. I am the one who will make this wheel turn, and you are the one who will make the wheel turn. Lao Li, do you want to build a prosperous Tang dynasty with me? Chapter 150. Yes. Why wouldn't I? Li Shimin didn't even think about it. Until now, he no longer had any doubts about the mystery of Zhang Feng's origin. Damn it. Zhang Feng is from the Tang dynasty. Does he still want to harm the Tang dynasty? Let all the doubts go to hell. Seeing Li Shimin so determined, Zhang Feng nodded. Then he said, this is why I strongly recommended Dahai to Zhenla. When they throw themselves into the sea and happily transport goods to the Tang dynasty, Zhenla is really a Zhenla. In fact, he is a member of the Tang dynasty. I am a dog of the Tang dynasty. What a vicious plan. However, Li Shimin's fists were clenched tightly. He was extremely excited. Wei Shuyu, who was on the beam, was also shocked by Zhang Feng's plan. It could even be said that Zhang Feng's words just now opened the door to another world for him. He had heard the name Zhang Feng from his father for a long time, but even if he asked anything about Zhang Feng, his father didn't say a word. Today, he was lucky enough to accompany the emperor out of the palace. He didn't expect to see the mysterious person who was highly praised by his father and all his uncles, and who hid very well. Today, he secretly sneaked into the beam of the tavern without anyone knowing. He was worried about the emperor and wanted to see how powerful Zhang Feng was. Now he saw it. She took a deep look at Zhang Feng. He seemed to be about the same age as her, but he had such talent. He was able to make her father shocked, praise him all day long, and admire his calligraphy all day long. This was something that Wei Shuyu would never forget for the rest of her life. He glanced at the words on the wall again and silently remembered them in his heart. Then he quietly sneaked out. Zhang Feng, I'm looking forward to the golden age of the Tang dynasty that you mentioned. Regarding this, Li Shimin and Zhang Feng did not notice at all. However, this did not affect their conversation. From the price of the aquatic products to how to sell them, and so on, Li Shimin smacked his lips and said, "This Zhenla is really sitting on a treasure mountain. Tell me, what else does he have?" "What else?" Zhang Feng smiled. "They have a lot of things." While talking, Zhang Feng showed off a handful of jade and said, "Look at this thing, this is a good treasure. In the future, everything will be yours and mine. Are you satisfied? Also, do you know how profitable the best spices on the market are?" Li Shimin was shocked. Touching the sachet on his belt, he asked, "Could it be that Zhenla also has this thing? This thing costs 100 strings of coins per caddy." "Ha!" Zhang Feng smiled faintly. "Laoli, what if I tell you that that place not only has another kind of spice in the world, but its price is so low that you'll go crazy? What will you do?" "How low?" Li Shimin went crazy. "About 1,000 strings of coins per cart. F***ck. Li Shimin exploded. "A whole cart? How many stones would that be? Only 1,000 strings of coins?" Li Shimin could not help but have the urge to drool. Looking at Li Shimin's exaggerated appearance, Zhang Feng patted him on the shoulder in annoyance. "This is nothing. If you sign a long-term supply contract, the price of that thing will be even lower. And you know that in Zhenla, that thing is only used as firewood. Do you believe it?" Li Shimin had the urge to order the troops to send out now. Such a good thing, and Zhenla wasted it like this? What a waste! What a reckless waste of resources! How good would it be if it was given to me? How good would it be if I had this thing in the Tang dynasty? Li Shimin went crazy. Zhang Feng looked at Li Shimin's crazy eyes and laughed a few times. He seemed to be a little drunk. He had been drinking since noon. Even the god of wine would be F***king drunk. Let alone him. He got up dizzily, sat on the ground against the wall, patted the floor beside him, and waved his hand. Li Shimin simply sat cross-legged on the floor. Zhang Feng said mysteriously, "This thing is just one of them. There is another thing that you should have heard of, that is lychee and bananas. You are used to calling them ganjiao. There are also many strange fruits. Because of poor preservation, they have only been sold in the places closest to the Tang dynasty. I gave them an idea. Let these fruits and seafood be transported to Chang'an fresh." "What idea?" Li Shimin asked. Among the tributes of Zhenla, there were indeed fruits, but they were basically dried fruits. He craved those things. Not only him, but the Empress and the others also liked those things. Moreover, every time Zhenla came to offer tributes, the noblewomen of Chang'an would pester the ministers and often come to him. What idea could he have? Everyone was wringing their hands. If only there were fresh ones. But now, Zhang Feng actually came up with an idea? This aroused Li Shimin's great interest. "What else is there?" "It's just a water wheel." Zhang Feng rolled his eyes. "Are you stupid? That thing could be used to fight the drought, and it could even be sold. Otherwise, are you going to use the useless water wheel to chop firewood?" Chapter 151. Li Shimin's head was swollen and hurting badly now. He felt dizzy. It was as if someone had hit him hard with a stick. His original plan was to sell the remaining 80,000 water wheels to Tubo or Tuyuhun. But now, it seemed that this plan had to be changed. There was a way out for what was originally a headache. Do you want it or not? If you don't, I'll turn around and use it for business. This was far more cost-effective than buying a water wheel. How much would it cost to build one? As long as you Tubo or Tuyuhun have food, my Tang dynasty will make as much as you want. But now it had to be changed. He couldn't use the wood of the Tang dynasty. If you want it, exchange it with wood. Li Shimin suddenly felt that he was so wise and mighty. Brother Zhang Feng, just say it. What other good things do you have? Just tell me all of them. Don't spill the beans. It's really making me anxious. Li Shimin couldn't wait any longer. He couldn't wait to go back and personally summon Prince Zhenla and the others. It would be best if he signed the contract tonight for 100 years. No, a 500-year contract. He would directly tie him down. Zhang Feng saw that Li Shimin was really smiling at this time, without the worry when he entered the door, and said slowly, "Actually, the map outside Zhenla is very big. They are very wild and barbaric. There are even places where people are still eating raw meat and drinking blood. There are countless resources in such places waiting for us to explore, so Zhenla is our first step. And Zhenla is actually nothing, Lao Li. Zhang Feng couldn't help but sigh. He was afraid that what he was about to say would scare him. An endless supply of salt. Even if it was recorded in history that it was mined from the Tang dynasty, at least during Zhang Feng's time, there were still people mining. Although at that time, no one cared about salt. He only went to take a look out of curiosity when he heard the old man in Sawadika talk about it when he was traveling. This was enough to show how abundant the production of this thing was, right? Even after thousands of years, they still couldn't finish digging. If this wasn't a treasure, then what was? Zhang Feng wanted to completely turn salt into a cheap commodity. This Zhenla was the key to this. Otherwise, with the amount of salt produced in the Tang dynasty, not to mention selling it, it wouldn't even be enough for them to eat. But now, everything is fine. With this toy, those with big necks could scram to the Tubo Turks, Dashi Empire, and other places. The Tang dynasty does not welcome you. It's Lao Tzu. Zhang Feng doesn't welcome you. Brother Zhang Feng? Brother? Brother, wake up. Originally, Li Shimin had been waiting for Zhang Feng to say something, but after waiting for a long time, he finally realized that Zhang Feng was laughing sinisterly. That smile was so cheap that Li Shimin wished he could slap him away. He shook Zhang Feng to wake him up speechlessly. Zhang Feng coughed without blushing and said, Lao Li, I think you'd better be prepared first. What I'm going to say next, don't talk nonsense. Just say it. You're a porcelain hammer. Fine. I'll say it. Zhang Feng was a little speechless. He couldn't even pretend to be cool anymore. If I'm not comfortable, you won't have it easy either. Thinking of this, Zhang Feng smiled and said, Do you know what's the most valuable and precious thing of Zhenla? What does the Tang dynasty need the most now? Don't talk about food. If Zhenla had food, he wouldn't have come to the Tang dynasty to ask for food. Li Shimin curled his lips. It's not food. It's something else that concerns the people's livelihood. Li Shimin couldn't figure it out. He was very anxious. There were too many things that concerned the people's livelihood. How could he know what Zhang Feng was up to? Just as Li Shimin was about to strangle Zhang Feng's neck, Zhang Feng stretched out a hand to stop Li Shimin, and then said a word faintly. Salt. There are countless salt mines that can at least supply all the people in the Tang dynasty. They won't dry up even after 500 years of free trial. Boom. Li Shimin felt like he was struck by lightning. Otherwise, how could he fall to the ground? And there was a big bump on his forehead. However, all of this was not important. Li Shimin grabbed Zhang Feng's collar and asked with a very serious expression, What did you say? Say it again? Zhang Feng was also confused. This Lao Li, why did his expression and aura look a bit like a person? However, at this time, he was drunk and dizzy. How could he have the mind to think about who Li Shimin looked like? He patted the shocked Li Shimin and said, Lao Li, that's where you're wrong. I told you to be prepared. You didn't wet your pants, did you? Under Li Shimin's murderous gaze, Zhang Feng was terrified. Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Actually, this is true. I was just casually asking. I didn't expect that at least one city area in Zhenla is a poisonous salt mine that even birds and beasts don't dare to enter. I estimated that if we can get it within 500 years of the Tang dynasty, everyone can buy a caddy of salt for only 1 coin. Li Shimin still didn't believe it. However, he also knew that his attitude was a bit too excited. Fortunately, Zhang Feng was drunk at this time. Otherwise, he would definitely give himself away. Li Shimin smiled bitterly. He still couldn't be as calm as an ancient well. He put his arm around Zhang Feng's shoulder and asked, Then, what kind of price did you pay? I believe that the people of Zhenla can't think of this, right? You may not be able to guess my answer. Chapter 152. Li Shimin was speechless. He wished he could strangle Zhang Feng to death. This bastard always pretended to be mysterious to keep him in suspense. Couldn't he just say everything he knew in one breath? Would he die? However, the insult. Salt that could last the Tang dynasty for 500 years. This was something Li Shimin dreamed of doing. He just didn't expect that there would be such a treasure in the barren land of Zhenla. Ridiculous, ridiculous. Li Shimin sighed. He smiled bitterly and said, Zhenla used to be a barren land because of that, but after what you said, didn't it become a land of treasures? Treasures? Zhang Feng smiled. If I told you that in the south of that place, rice can be grown 3 times a year, would you believe me? If you control the port of Ma'i, you can make all kinds of seasonings and aromatherapy for food. At that time, if the wheat and sorghum of the north could be successfully cultivated as well as the rice of the south, and they could be obtained from that small tribe, how could there be a famine in the Great Tang by then? By then, even if you don't control Tubo, Tuyuhun, and other countries, the food of the Tang dynasty will be enough to fill people to death. Other countries will beg you to give them some food. Zhang Feng didn't plan to say this. He was going to keep it as a trump card. When he entered the imperial court, this thing would be the capital for his rise. Although he knew that the imperial court had always been a battlefield, who would dare to oppose him when he controlled the food lifeline of the Tang dynasty? Lao Tzu wouldn't give you any food even if he had it. You'll starve to death, you bastard. This was Zhang Feng's life-saving trump card. He didn't dare to use it easily. This encounter with the people of Zhenla reminded him of the richness of that place. That was why he kept scolding those people who were sitting on a mountain of treasures and starving to death. They deserved to starve to death. They deserved it. Zhang Feng spat again in his heart before he patted Li Shimin's neck in satisfaction. Brother, just you wait and see. In their eyes, it was indeed poisonous salt. But as long as it's in our hands, it's a treasure trove. Not only will the people of the Tang dynasty have salt to eat, but we can also guarantee the consumption of salt in the surrounding countries. The 500 years I said is a conservative estimate. It's an estimate based on the predictions of all the people in the surrounding countries. Gulp. Li Shimin swallowed hard. His voice was a little hoarse. Brother Zhang, brother, you are my true brother. Let me ask you, what price did you pay? Could it be that you want to marry that dark-skinned princess? You are really a good person. Marry that Darla? No. Lao Tzu was not blind. How could he be interested in such an idiotic woman? He's just sitting there all day, not even letting out a fart. What do I need him for? Li Shimin sighed again, revealing a, you know what I mean, look. The look in his eyes was complicated. Although he was trying his best to quibble, Li Shimin understood from the first time he saw Zhang Feng send the two of them off. The princess and Zhang Feng were reluctant to part with each other. Who was not lustful? Men who were not lustful? One was a gentleman who loved openly, and the other was a man who sacrificed his life for the sake of righteousness. Li Shimin suddenly felt that he and Zhang Feng were the same kind of people. They were doing this for the sake of righteousness. Gentlemen, nothing could be better than this. When we enter the palace, if I let you suffer even a little bit, I, Li Shimin, will pronounce my name backwards. Li Shimin secretly swore. Zhang Feng, on the other hand, was furious. The more furious he was, the more Li Shimin felt that this was likely to be true. In the end, Zhang Feng did not explain. Who cares? Son of a bitch. Was it easy for Lao Tzu? Come on, don't be so upset. Although the Zhenla girl is a little tanned, I've been there before. It's the same even if I blow out the lamp. But to be honest, I saw that girl. Other than being a little tanned, her figure is really good. In Chang'an City, you can't find someone like her. Enough. If you continue, Lao Tzu will get angry with you. Zhang Feng was furious. If he had known, he would not have brought this up. Zhang Feng hurriedly changed the topic. The price I paid this time is actually not much of a price. A cart of poisonous salt and 10 caddies of food. Do as you see fit. Get lost, get lost. Lao Tzu wants to sleep. Zhang Feng was speechless. He did not want to talk to Li Shimin anymore. This old pervert was always staring at women. Lao Tzu was a good youth of the 21st century. If he did not even have this bit of aesthetic sense, then what was the point of living? I'd rather die. Li Shimin was also furious. He stood up with a bang. He did not even care that his robe was torn. He asked in a trembling voice, "You said, a cart of poisonous salt, 10 caddies of food?" Zhang Feng said in a low, muffled voice, "Just 10 caddies. As for what kind of food you give him, it's up to you. I don't care. But you must keep the price as low as possible. Give him a blow and give him a sweet date. Otherwise, if others take advantage of the loophole, or if those people from the Ministry of Revenue and the Ministry of Agriculture find out, you will lose your life." Are my Ministry of Agriculture and Ministry of Revenue so unreliable and greedy? Chapter 153. Li Shimin was at a loss for words. Although he knew that the Ministry of Revenue and the Ministry of Works were very pedantic, was the monthly payment really that serious? What kind of person would be described by Zhang Feng as someone who valued money as much as his life? "Brother Zhang Feng, what you said is a little too much. Although I've heard of the Nashi people, they are a little pedantic, but it's not like what you said, right?" Li Shimin still wanted to fight for it. He was definitely burning up. Was this his imperial court? "This is the imperial court." Zhang Feng testified for him. Zhang Feng's expression was solemn. Although he was tongue-tied, his face was red, and his head was dizzy. He still knew the seriousness of the matter. "Laoli, we are brothers. That's why I'm saying so many heartfelt words to you. You must remember that the people don't fight with the officials. You must remember this. Although the current emperor is a good emperor, the group of officials around him are a group of people who have lived a life of wisdom. If it involves their interests or makes them feel that you threaten their interests, they will not hesitate to kill you. This is the reason why I asked you to get in touch with Zhang Sun Wuji. He is the Minister of Justice, the Emperor's brother-in-law, and an experienced official. He knows a little about the ways of the world. So, get along with Zhang Sun Wuji more. Even if you earn a little less, don't provoke the Ministry of Works and the Imperial Court. If such a day comes, you'd rather hand over all the technology and assets you know, or throw them to Zhang Sun Wuji. Run as far as you can. That's the best. The Imperial Court is a nest of quarrels. Your every move is no different from a flea in their eyes. But once a flea like you touches the foundation of their life, they will slap you to death without hesitation. Zhang Feng said with a heavy heart. Li Shimin was silent. He knew best what the Imperial Court was like, but he was still very grateful to Zhang Feng for his advice. He only dared to say such words because he truly regarded him as a brother. If it were anyone else, who would dare to say such words? Who would say that? Although Zhenla looked like a fat piece of meat, once this fat piece of meat made people jealous, he would immediately become a piece of smelly meat that attracted flies and smelly bugs. Thinking of this, Li Shimin wanted to get up and give Zhang Feng a Confucian bow, but he couldn't get up after a long time. After a few jars of wine, they were all drunk. How could he still have the strength to get up? Li Shimin didn't get up anymore. After some jesting, he asked, "In the middle of Zhenla, there is Nanzhao. It won't be easy to get there." "Bite? Not a fart." Zhang Feng couldn't take it anymore. He roared with bloodshot eyes. "Do you have a pig's brain? I just told you to get closer to Lord Zhangsun. It would be best if you could pull in that fearless Qing Yaojin. At that time, when you go to Zhenla, you only need one token from the two of them, and it will be enough for you to go unimpeded. And you can get the goods just by sitting in Chang'an City. Why do you have to go to Zhenla? Do you think it's too easy?" Li Shimin was despised again. But Li Shimin didn't care. He asked about the specific industry plan again. That was the extinction plan. The more he talked about this plan, the more excited Li Shimin became. At the lowest price, they would exchange food for poisonous salt mines, and then process it a little. The first salt, which was the poisonous salt, would be sold to the Turks, Tubo, and Tuyuhun. Then they would exchange the salt for food without silver. 1 caddy of salt would be 1 caddy of fine grain. In just a few decades, the entire grassland would be full of big-necked people. At that time, they would have no combat power. If they wanted food, they would have to use resources to exchange with the Tang dynasty. Then, they would distribute all the cattle, sheep, and horses on the grassland to the people of the Tang dynasty. No one would want them? Nonsense. They were all farmers. Who didn't want to have a mule to farm? At that time, not to mention that there were many cattle and sheep on the grassland, such a big Tang dynasty, with 1 sheep per person, would be distributed to them in minutes. At that time, there would no longer be a sheep, a cow, or a horse on the grassland. Would a people on horseback without a horse be worthy of it? And what would the Tang dynasty pay for it? His decision was to put in a little effort, collect the goods, and then throw them to the people who were lining up to ask for them. Done. He didn't even need to carry them on his back. Who wouldn't be willing? The more Li Shimin listened, the more excited he became. In the end, his whole body trembled like a pendulum. Extinction plan. This was really a F***king extinction plan. Moreover, the Tang dynasty didn't even have to pay a penny, but they made a lot of money and firmly controlled all the countries in their hands. Li Shimin almost choked. Brother Zhang Feng, are you really not an immortal? Immortal? Zhang Feng, who was dizzy, laughed and said, have you ever seen any immortal? Li Shimin shook his head. That's it. No one has ever seen an immortal. How can I be an immortal? If I were an immortal, wouldn't it be great if I could turn stone into gold in one breath? Would I have to work so hard? Li Shimin blinked and didn't say anything. He knew he couldn't win. However, this plan caused him to become anxious again. He cupped his fists, staggered up from the ground, and was about to slip away. But he was caught by Zhang Feng. By the way, Lao Li, I almost forgot. Why did you come to me? Did you encounter any difficulties? Chapter 154. Li Shimin was also stunned when he heard that. He rubbed his groggy head for a long time before he remembered the purpose of his visit. He personally went to the counter to take a herbal teapot and drank a mouthful of cold tea. Then, he threw it to Zhang Feng and said, if you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten. I think you did it on purpose. You even saw through that? Zhang Feng took the teapot with a smile and leaned himself against the wall to drink. When Li Shimin thought of the business, his whole spirit was refreshed. This is my family's business, so it's not good to talk about it. But I really have no choice. Say it. As a brother, I don't have any other skills, but I have a glib tongue. Li Shimin ignored Zhang Feng and seemed to be immersed in his memories. Originally, there were 3 of us brothers. My father built a family business with his good friends in the Guanlong area for the sake of singing. At that time, I was going to take the imperial examinations and become an official, but my father promised that as long as I helped the family work hard, he would let me be the head of the family in the future. Then your father went back on his word and let your brother be the head of the family, right? Zhang Feng asked with his eyes wide open. Li Shimin didn't say anything and nodded. Zhang Feng suddenly had a strong interest in Lao Li. Lao Li, don't tell me you're that person in the palace? F***ck, your experience is so similar. Zhang Feng's words instantly alerted Li Shimin. He didn't know what was wrong with him that made him see a clue. He laughed and said vaguely, how can my identity be compared to that person? That's true. Zhang Feng smacked his lips. He would rather die than believe that this master had any connection with that person in the palace. Damn it, there was no possibility at all, okay? Let me tell you a story. Zhang Feng said faintly, speaking of which, there is still half a month before the birthday of that person in the palace. But look at how the current emperor treats him. Although your experience is similar to His Majesty's, let me tell you, even if you're just a little commoner and His Majesty, you're all the same. We're all mortals, born and raised by mothers and fathers. The difference between us and animals is that we have feelings. Although the current emperor has used some tricks, he still wholeheartedly wants what his father wants. Even if he has to run hundreds of horses to death, he will still get it for him from the ends of the earth. Li Shimin fell silent. His eyes were filled with worry. Zhang Feng patted his shoulder and said, actually, have you ever heard of this saying? The son wants to raise, but the father doesn't wait for him. Is it the father's fault for not teaching him well? If your father didn't make a promise back then, you might not have achieved what you have today, and you might not be able to see me today. You should be glad that your father didn't let you enter the big dai vat in the imperial court. But I'm already in it. Li Shimin shouted in his heart. Brother Zhang Feng, you said that the son wants to raise, but the father doesn't wait for him. I'm indeed facing this problem now. My old father, because I fought for the position of the head of the family, and my brothers left the Tang dynasty one after another, so he has always hated me and doesn't like me. He's very similar to His Majesty. I also want to redeem myself. Previously, I was young and impetuous, and my brothers joined forces to mess with me. How could I not resist? Zhang Feng fell silent. Was Lao Li wrong? That was right. He was the same as His Majesty. They just wanted to survive in the cracks. This might be the characteristic of the men in Guangzhou. Where the hell did this tradition come from? For a lousy reputation, to destroy the false title of the head of the family, they didn't even understand the principle of family harmony and prosperity? Did they have to fight to the death? Lao Li. Actually, I have no right to ask about your family's affairs, and I don't dare to make decisions for you because every family has its own difficulties. I can only say that all of this today is your family's own fault. Listen to me first. Zhang Feng pressed Li Shimin's shoulder to shut him up and then said, I don't want to hear about your past. I think it's not as wonderful as His Majesty's. But you have to remember that there's no overnight hatred between father and son. Your original intention is for the family business. This is understandable, but please remember one thing. Admit defeat. You're a father now. Do you want your children to learn from you in the future? Li Shimin was abnormally shocked. He really hadn't thought about this matter. It's the father's fault if the son doesn't teach. He knew this sentence from Old Man Kong. But, I know you have concerns, but you must remember one thing. Think more for the future generations. Admit defeat, and lower your head to your father. I know your personality, and you're not that hard to talk to. Otherwise, do you think I, Zhang Feng, am willing to be friends with anyone? If that's the case, then right now, the streets are filled with my brothers and friends. Please, Brother Zhang Feng, enlighten me. My father's birthday is in a few days. I'm also thinking about how to resolve the conflict between us at this time, but I have no way, so it's like this. How is there no way? Zhang Feng smiled mysteriously and pointed at his head. Think carefully. Do you have a way to resolve your father and son relationship? Chapter 155. What? If I want, will I expose all my dirty linen to you? Li Shimin shook his head speechlessly. Zhang Feng wanted to slap Li Shimin's head hard to see if he was a blockhead. However, he reached out his hand and stopped in the end. He couldn't reach it, and he didn't have the strength. He staggered and fell to the floor. The teacup in his hand was thrown into Li Shimin's arms. In an instant, he looked like he had wet his pants. Li Shimin frowned at the sight. Zhang Feng acted as if nothing had happened and simply laid on the floor. The cold floor made him feel a little less drunk. At this moment, he finally understood. Why did those drunkards prefer to sleep on the floor and the curb instead of sleeping on a bed when they were drunk? It was so damn comfortable. You're a blockhead. To think that I've told you so much before. You didn't listen to me at all. Let me ask you. Why is your father unhappy with you? Are you the one who snatched the position of the head of the family? Wrong. He promised to give it to you, but you snatched it from him. This is his fault. If you can't do it, don't agree. But why can't he get along with you? Is it because I drove my brothers away? Li Shimin asked hurriedly. Oh no. Zhang Feng stamped on the floor randomly. This is all because of one original intention, which is to revitalize the family business. No matter how you become the head of the family, your father hopes that you can lead the family to glory and glory. Let me ask you, are you bringing glory to your ancestors now? Li Shimin was silent. He was deep in thought. Although your family business is nothing in my opinion, if you want to resolve the conflict between you and your father, let me ask you something. Before you came here, were you angry with your father? Because of the grain storage. That's it. Since he's willing to talk to you about business matters, it means that the conflict between you two can be resolved. As long as he doesn't care what I do, I'll just give him a cold shoulder. Zhang Feng was extremely thirsty. He pointed at his mouth. Li Shimin simply stuffed the spout into Zhang Feng's mouth. Li Shimin was shocked. Imperial father didn't ignore me. Although he was in the depths of the harem, he still cared about the people's livelihood. Then if I were to make all my plans. I got it. Brother, do you mean that if we tell him all our plans and prove that we are working hard for the sake of the family, our conflict will be resolved? If you don't want your father to be angered to death by you at his birthday, then go ahead and say it. Zhang Feng was speechless. I said you have a pig's brain, and you really do have a pig's brain. Where is your business sense? It's really hard for me to imagine how big your business is. How can you ask such a stupid question? Li Shimin was instantly ignited. Alas! Damn you, is this how you talk to your old brother? Do you look down on your old brother so much? I'm already having a headache, so why don't you come up with an idea? Are you insulting me? Hey! It seems that it's a good thing that you can lose your temper. Zhang Feng smiled embarrassedly. Before this matter is confirmed and the contract is signed with Shenla, as well as the matter regarding Tufan, we have to wait until the contract is signed. Until the deed is done, don't tell anyone. Otherwise, you can go find a crooked tree. Li Shimin was confused. This crooked tree, however, Li Shimin instantly understood. He was so angry that he blew his beard and glared. However, Zhang Feng didn't wait for him to lose his temper and said, "From the way Zhenla's people came today, I can see that this is a good day. For the birthday of the person in the palace, you have to seize the time and try to drag the emperor or Zhang Sun Wuji down in these 2 days, no matter the cost. In this way, you can sign the contract. It's best if the contract is signed by Tubo, Tuyuhun, and Zhenla. I'm sure that the main reason why Tubo and Tuyuhun are here is because of this. Are you so sure?" "I'm so sure." Zhang Feng was certain. This matter has been left unchecked for a long time. I think it's already June. Logically speaking, they should be freaking anxious, but they haven't done anything. That means they're waiting for the drought in Longyu Dao. Li Shimin was also shocked. He thought carefully for a while. In his mind, the list of tributes presented by Tubo and Tuyuhun's envoys appeared. He didn't notice it before, but now that he thought about it carefully, it was really more sumptuous than before. Could it be that what Zhang Feng said was true? This time, they wanted to use the birthday of the retired emperor to confirm this matter? How confident are you? Li Shimin grabbed Zhang Feng, who was drinking water, and asked. 80%. If the retired emperor doesn't cause trouble. It was a sure thing. Although Zhang Feng said it was 80%, it was definitely 100%. Because, with Zhang Feng's temper, he would never smooth things over. He would always leave a safe place for himself. Li Shimin's eyes flashed a trace of ruthlessness. It seems that Chang'an is going to have a big change in this birthday. Chapter 156. Li Shimin was a little scared. But he was also looking forward to it. He was afraid that if something went wrong during the birthday celebration, he would have to bear the infamy. The infamy of being a murderer and usurping the throne really made him feel uncomfortable. If he could solve it during the birthday celebration, that would be great. But could this matter be as good as he thought? There were always some people who liked to see him fall, and even hoped that he would fall. Li Shimin was very clear about this. Thinking of this, Li Shimin could not help but clench his fists. This incident, everything was gathered at the birthday celebration, which also made Li Shimin feel deeply pressured this time. If he could overcome it, then the overall luck of the Tang dynasty would skyrocket. However, if something were to go wrong, he would be plunged into an irrecoverable trouble. The most important thing was that these plans could not be known to anyone. At this time, a trace of murderous intent flickered in Li Shimin's eyes. "Brother Zhang Feng, tell me, Lao Li, also know about this matter. Everything seems to be very colorful, but it is also very dangerous. If something goes wrong, then the birthday celebration of that person in the palace will be the day that Lao Li, will be exterminated. Just tell me how I should deal with this matter, and also solve the conflict between my father and me." Zhang Feng sobered up a little. "Actually, this matter still depends on one person." "Who?" "Zhang Sun Wuji. Lao Li, don't you know that this matter has actually been in our plan from the beginning?" "Plan? There was a plan from the beginning?" Li Shimin immediately became spirited and quickly asked, "I'd like to hear the details." "Regarding this matter, you've always stood on your own side, but you've forgotten to look at the overall situation. Even until my death, I've been mentioning Zhangsun Wuji. Could it be that you don't understand why I must have you go find Zhangsun Wuji? A buzzing sound was heard. Li Shimin had thought through all his problems. Why did Zhang Feng keep saying that the people should not fight with the officials? Why did he keep stressing that they had to take a small share and let Zhangsun Wuji and the royal family take the majority? Why did he keep emphasizing it? Now, he finally understood. Zhang Feng had been plotting all along. It was a path where he could advance and sweep everything before him, and if he retreated, he could retreat safely. Although he was drunk now. However, his words still shocked Li Shimin. He had thought of all the possibilities. What was Zhang Feng thinking? How did he manage to strategize? Could it be that he had been plotting and weaving a net ever since the first time he fell in love with Long Yudao? He was aghast. He also wanted such an ability. Although he and Zhang Feng were now brothers, he also knew that Zhang Feng was teaching him. He was teaching him everything. During this period of time, Zhang Feng was like a mentor, opening many windows for Li Shimin. However, he was a little hesitant. He fell into Zhang Feng's flowery words and lost his ability to strategize. He also ignored Zhang Feng's words. Zhang Feng was teaching him how to rule a country. Li Shimin looked at Zhang Feng, who was leaning against the wall in a daze. He wanted to ask, but in the end, he could not say anything. He struggled to help Zhang Feng up, put together 2 or 3 long stools, and laid him flat on it. At this moment, Zhang Feng woke up. Instead of saying that he was awake, he had not slept all this time. Lao Li, we are brothers, aren't we? Your business is our business. Actually, from the moment I saw your face when you came in, I knew that you were lost. Remember this, the way of business is the way of the wolf. I believe you know about the animal called the wolf, right? Think of yourself as a wolf. Although you are in the middle of a storm, you still have to control the overall situation. This is very important. This is very important for the continuation of the whole tribe. You have forgotten what it looks like. I know. Li Shimin now felt like he had returned to the time when he was a teenager studying. He humbly remembered these 2 words. The way of the wolf. Come on. I'm very sleepy, so you should go back quickly. Don't let your wife wait too long. On the day of your father's birthday, remember to send a waiter to my shop. I'll personally prepare a table of delicacies that you've never tasted before. Let me tell you another thing. There is no problem that cannot be solved with a meal. If it can't be solved, then 2 meals. The old man is now enjoying his life in peace. This meal is very important. No matter how big the conflict is, I guarantee that your father will call you brother after drinking 3 jars of good wine. Before he finished speaking, Zhang Feng fell into a deep sleep. Li Shimin looked at the sleeping Zhang Feng and then looked outside. Unknowingly, the outside was already brightly lit, and an oil lamp was lit in the corner of the restaurant. It must be Wei Shuyu's doing, right? He looked at Zhang Feng again, took off his coat and put it on him. Then he said thank you and quietly closed the door and left. As soon as he left the restaurant, he saw Wei Shuyu's face as if he had seen an immortal. Li Shimin glanced at him, his voice extremely cold. You saw it all? I saw it. Forget it. Chapter 157. In the Daming Palace. At this time, Empress Zhangsun was sitting in the imperial study, looking very anxious. Zhangsun Wuji, Wei Jing, and the others were also waiting for Li Shimin anxiously. Originally, they came to report the news brought back by the spies in Chang'an city and all the prefectures. But they learned that Huang Digui went to the retired emperor to complain, which made the already tense atmosphere even more tense. It was going to be Li Yuan's birthday soon. Now there was such a big mess. What should they do? The temperature in the evening was obviously lower, but everyone's faces were still full of sweat, and they didn't dare to wipe it off. Although Empress Zhangsun was sitting there with a calm face and reading the emperor's poetry collection, everyone knew that the empress was the most terrible at this time. What time is it, Xiaohuan? After a long time, Empress Zhangsun asked lightly. Her personal maid hurried to the door and looked for a while, and then reported with trepidation, Your Highness, it's the evening now. Still no news of His Majesty? Your Highness, my son Shuyu sent a letter. His Majesty is drunk. Maybe Maybe he's on his way back. Wei Zheng was a little guilty, but he still spoke frankly. A person who can control the whole situation and make it so watertight, who also has such a novel salt-making skill, and who can make such good wine and food. Your Excellency Wei, tell me, what do you think of Zhang Feng? Wei Zheng was a little confused about the Empress's intention. He exchanged glances with the others, and then said truthfully, Your Highness, we can't catch up with Zhang Feng's knowledge. Moreover, Minister Du, Fang Shangshu, and Shang Shangshu have all talked about his knowledge. This person's knowledge is basically the best of 100 schools of thought. This old subject was fortunate enough to witness his talent. Although he kept talking about business matters, it seems that this lad has a bright future in the business world. But I heard that this person doesn't like money or these things. Why are there so many people like him? Is he really willing to stay in a rundown tavern? Seeing that everyone was nervous, Empress Zhangsun smiled faintly. This is not the imperial court. This concubine is also a little curious about this child, that's all. Everyone, there is no need to be reserved. After all, His Majesty wants the crown prince to learn the way of ruling the country from him. This concubine is his mother, so I have to know about the crown prince's teacher. Hearing this, everyone could not help but heave a deep sigh of relief. In an instant, everyone started talking. Nyang, I old Qing know a little. Brother Zhangfo. Although he's just a small tavern shopkeeper, his ability to command is something that I can't catch up to. He is a piece of military material. Yes, an unpolished jade. Old Black. When did you reserve him? This old man thinks that his talent and knowledge, as well as his analysis of the current situation, are enough to look down on the world. Our Tang dynasty's imperial court urgently needs the injection of such fresh blood. Only in this way can the imperial court, which is like a pool of stagnant water, have a trace of vitality. If I may be so bold as to ask, what? I haven't made a decision yet. Are you all in a hurry to rope him in? Just as Wei Zheng was about to kneel down and ask the Empress for permission, Li Shimin's voice suddenly sounded behind everyone. Everyone was so scared that they hurriedly knelt down to welcome him. Li Shimin's face was full of unhappiness. He glared at Wei Zheng and the others. Under the worried eyes of Empress Zhangsun, he sat down on the dragon throne. Li Shimin was very surprised. Wei Zheng and Zhang Feng had only met 2 or 3 times. How could such an upright and plain-spoken person like him be willing to lower his noble head and humbly beg the Empress for Zhang Feng's sake? How rare! This was truly a rare sight. From this, it could be seen that Zhang Feng's charm was very strong. I know that all of you are thinking of the Tang dynasty, but let's talk about this later. I have an extremely important matter to discuss now. Empress Zhangsun heard this. She stood up and said, Your Majesty, I'll take my leave first. As the Empress left, everyone's eyes were burning. Everyone knew why the Emperor left the palace this time. They couldn't tell whether the Emperor had solved this matter or not, but from his words, they could tell that he was in control of the whole situation. Everyone couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Your Majesty, have you found a way to solve the problem with the retired Emperor? Let's not talk about this first. There's another matter, which is more important than this. If it goes well, the Tang dynasty will immediately enter a prosperous era. If it fails, the Tang dynasty will face a disaster. What? A disaster? Everyone was shocked. Was it really so serious? What was it? Did the Turks march southward? No. I just received the news that Longyu Road didn't receive any sign of the Turks' army. There was no one else except for the group of envoys who came to the capital. Everyone was anxious, but they couldn't figure out what was going on. However, Li Shimin heaved a long sigh. I saw the crown prince and princess of Zhenla entering a tavern today. Chapter 158. Zhenla? Isn't that the small country on the border in the south? Your Majesty, the Zhenla diplomatic group is in Honglu Temple today. The envoys from other countries are basically in Honglu Temple, accompanied by Minister Yan Zhen of Honglu Temple. We didn't find the Zhenla diplomatic group going out. As Fang Xuanling's voice fell, Du Ruhui's eyes darkened. Today, when this old subject received the imperial order to receive the foreign envoys, I found that they brought many people of the same generation. I heard that they wanted to experience the glory of the Tang dynasty, so this old subject let them out of the palace as usual. The more Du Ruhui spoke, the paler his face became. The tavern was a secret in everyone's heart. It was actually discovered by the Zhenla people, and it was even seen by the emperor. This was serious. Du Ruhui was ready to punish, but Li Shimin waved his hand indifferently. This matter is not your responsibility. I was careless. I also didn't expect them to sneak into the tavern, but I found something interesting. Speaking of this, Li Shimin actually smiled slightly. Can you guess how miserable the crown prince and princess of Zhenla were when they came out? Zhang Feng actually robbed them clean. What? Wei Zheng was shocked. If this matter alarmed the Zhenla diplomatic group, the tavern was bound to be exposed. But Li Shimin was still very indifferent. He waved his hand and said, I was also worried before, but when I finally entered the tavern, I found that this kid actually liked that Princess Zhenla. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Zhang Feng liked that kind of person? Oh my god. This taste? Cheng Yaojin smacked his lips. Brother Zhang Feng, you should have said so earlier. If he likes this kind of person, wouldn't it be better if I bought hundreds of huji and sent them to him? Li Shimin glared at him. I was also wrong about this matter. Maybe I was thinking too much? Zhang Feng actually blushed for the first time. Ha! Li Shimin wanted to laugh when he thought of Zhang Feng's embarrassed look. Everyone was even more confused, but they felt that it was awesome. She wondered if she should send some women to Zhang Feng to satisfy his cravings. Li Shimin shook his head. Let's not talk about this for now. Actually, these are all my guesses. Don't try to use them to make up stories about him. However, I learned of two important things today. If he hadn't gotten drunk with Prince Zhenla, and if I hadn't poured him a jar of wine and made him drunk, I wouldn't have known that he knew so much. At that time, when I heard about this, I was so shocked that I broke out in cold sweat. Everyone was even more confused. What kind of major event was this? It actually made the emperor, who was always calm and collected, break out in a cold sweat? Your Majesty, are you saying that this matter is related to Zhenla? Zhang Sun Wuji asked softly. Yes. This matter is indeed related to Zhenla. Brother Zhang Feng had a few ideas. He squeezed out all the valuable items from the crown prince and the princess. When the two of them left, they still kept the calligraphy that Zhang Feng gave them as if they were treasures. I knew that something big was going to happen. Sure enough, Zhang Feng has another big plan. Zhenla is in the sea and is surrounded by water on all sides. There are many waterways and, correspondingly, there are also many aquatic products. Let's not talk about these. These are all trivial matters. Also, he said that the spices in that place were used by the aboriginals as firewood after some minor adjustments. These are all important points. The important point is, he found a salt mine in Zhenla. Li Shimin briefly said what he knew in one breath. Although everyone was dumbfounded, they were still waiting for the emperor to speak. Although they wanted to ask, they didn't dare to interrupt the emperor's mood. They had seen the emperor's gloomy face earlier today. Now that he was in a good mood, no one dared to ruin it. Seeing that no one asked, Li Shimin felt a little bored. He picked up Empress Jiangxuan's teacup and drank a mouthful. Do you know how big the salt mine is? We are stupid and don't know. Everyone said in unison. Li Shimin shook his head and didn't blame them. One must know that when he heard about it, he almost fainted from shock. Thinking of this, Li Shimin imitated Zhang Feng. His expression was dignified, but he waved his hand majestically and said, Come on, give me a seat. I'm afraid that you will faint when you hear about this, so be prepared. Everyone was dumbfounded. Wasn't it just a salt mine? Was there a need for this? Although everyone cursed in their hearts, they still thanked him and sat down. At this time, Li Shimin said mysteriously, Fang Xianling, tell me about the landscape of Zhenla. Your Majesty, according to the information we got, Zhenla is surrounded by water on 3 sides. There are a total of 21 cities with a total population of about 300,000 people. They are basically distributed in the north, east, and west of Zhenla. As for the south, I heard that it's a barren land where birds and beasts are extinct. Yes, that's the place where birds and beasts are extinct. Minister Fang, how big is that place? Fang Xianling seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly said, it's almost twice the size of Chang'an. Twice the size. Li Shimin was secretly surprised. However, he was more convinced of Zhang Feng's words. That place is where the salt mine is located. Zhang Feng said that the salt there is enough for the 5 million families of the Tang dynasty to use for 500 years. Can you guess what price Zhang Feng paid to get it? A cart of salt and 10 caddies of grain. Dong! Chapter 159. The sound of people falling to the ground was within Li Shimin's expectation. The white jade tablets in everyone's hands, and even Qing Yaojin, fell to the ground. As for those who didn't fall, their faces were pale and their bodies were trembling. 500 years. What was the effect? Millions of families. 500 years? Wei Zheng and the others couldn't help but groan. Once upon a time, they didn't dare to ask for that. They were only willing to use a little bit of poisonous salt on important days. But one day, the people of the entire Tang dynasty could use it in their sleep? They thought they were dreaming. Li Shimin was the same. Don't worry about it. When I first learned about this matter, I was also like this. Now, you all know that Zhang Feng, you and I have mastered the art of making salt. What is this? This is the lifeline of the Tang dynasty. We only need to use a little method to get countless things that others think are waste. Then, we can refine them a little and make them into non-toxic and harmless fine salt. What do you think of this business? Your Majesty, there is so much salt, and the art of making salt is not a profound secret art. Moreover, it is so far away. If someone is interested, they can find out about it after a little inquiry. What if Zhenla or other countries steal it? What do you think? Wei Zheng asked the doubt in his heart. Li Shimin waved his hand. I also asked about this matter, but Zhang Feng only said one sentence, spread the wealth. The salt collected can't be used. But the amount of salt we can make is not something that anyone can control. We get the first batch of salt and sell it to other countries. Then we quietly refine the salt and sell it to ourselves. Although there are some differences in the color, after grinding it will be snow white, right? No matter who it is, they won't be able to see the difference. Only we know that it is actually poisonous salt. What do you think of this plan? Li Shimin narrowed his eyes and asked. Vicious. Your Majesty, everyone knows that poisonous salt can't be used. If anyone eats it for more than a year, even a strong man won't be able to lift a stone. Although the refined salt doesn't have that much poison, it's still harmful. If someone were to find out about such a vicious plan, the consequences would be unimaginable. No way. Li Shimin waved his hand confidently. I've asked Zhang Feng about this matter. He said that the first dish of salt is fine. At most, after eating it for 10 or 20 years, one will develop a neck disease. Furthermore, at that time, there will be problems with one's constitution. Everyone was shocked. It would take 10 to 20 years for the problem to be discovered. They didn't dare to think about it. He had also thought things through. With Li Shimin's narration, everyone's eyes couldn't help but light up. It seemed that Li Shimin was getting drunk. Or perhaps he was a little tired. He waved his hand and asked Wei Shuyu to come forward. I'm a little tired. You can ask Wei Shuyu about the details. We'll settle the details tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, we'll settle this matter and sign the contract for him. What do you think? Everyone looked at each other, then stood up and respectfully sent off Li Shimin. Then, Qing Yaojin grabbed Wei Shuyu's Mingguang armor and asked, Boy, tell us, what did His Majesty and Zhang Feng talk about? If you don't behave, Lao Tzu will beat you to death. Wei Shuyu cried. She looked at Wei Zheng with pleading eyes. Wei Zheng pretended not to see. He said in a low voice, Old Cheng, let's not scare the child. What if the child is frightened? Lao Tzu will fight it out with you. When Cheng Yaojin heard this, his face immediately turned pale. He withdrew his hand embarrassedly, sat on the stool, and waited with his ears pricked up. With Wei Zheng's protection, Wei Shuyu became bolder. She gave a fist salute and said, "Uncles, I followed His Majesty to the small tavern today and Eves dropped a little at the door." Zhang Feng's plan. Under the angry stares of the crowd, Wei Shuyu hurriedly stopped showing off. She shrank her neck and said, "He means to use these things to exchange for grain. 1 caddy of fine grain and 1 caddy of salt." F***CK. Did Brother Zhang Feng come up with this plan? What if there's no grain? For example, what about the Turks? Fang Xianling and Du Ruhui's white beards were trembling. They asked hurriedly. Zhang Feng didn't say anything about the Turks, but I think he means to exchange cattle and sheep. Moreover, he said that the horses will only be exchanged for grain, not salt. Hearing this, everyone cursed in unison. F***CK. I knew it. This bastard's plan is vicious. Using horses to exchange for salt. And it's this kind of salt. Ha, if Xieli and Tuli know about this, I really want to see their expressions. They're a race on horseback. Without horses, what can they use to fight the Tang dynasty? This is a good plan. But in the end, everyone understood. Because this plan was mentioned by Zhang Feng from the beginning. But they didn't expect that Zhang Feng wouldn't stop until the Turks were dead. They wanted to know how the Turks offended Zhang Feng to make him hate them so much. But let's not talk about Zhang Feng. Which one of them didn't hate the Turks? Under Wei Shuyu's baffled gaze, everyone burst into laughter for a while. Then, everyone fell silent. Wei Jing sent Wei Shuyu away with a solemn expression and said, "Everyone, this matter is settled?" "It's settled. Let's do it. The bold ones are stuffed to death, and the timid ones are starved to death. This contract is signed." Chapter 160. Zhang Feng was very tired. Really tired. He had slept on the floor of the tavern for the whole night. At this moment, with one hand on the wall and the other on his waist, he slowly lay down on the recliner and felt a little better. "Damn Lao Li, don't you know how to put me on the recliner?" Looking at the iron wine pot under his waist, Zhang Feng felt a toothache. He would never get drunk again. Damn it. It was too lonely to be alone. Zhang Feng supported his waist with difficulty, dragged the recliner, and slowly opened the door of the tavern. He hung a sign on the door saying that the tavern was temporarily closed. Then, he groaned and lay down under the crooked tree, going back to sleep. Lao Li should have used his connections to go to Honglu Temple by now, right? If this matter succeeds, then Lao Tzu's plan will succeed. Wulin, is there a Wulin? Last night, even though he had gotten drunk, he still wanted to drink with her. But the guy on the roof beam, he saw it with his own eyes. He could climb up the roof beam without making a sound, and even point a crossbow at him. It seemed that Lao Li's family was also very deep. Zhang Feng had only seen people with such superb climbing skills on TV and in novels. Wuxia. Could it be that there were also Wulin people in this world? There was also Jianghu? Then he had to think about it carefully. When the time came, would he go to the end of the world with his sword, or would he give up his power to the world? Just as Zhang Feng was thinking about whether there was a Wulin in this world, and whether he should go to the end of the world with his sword. The sun was already shining on the paper window of Chang'an city. With the sound of 3 gongs, the bustle of Chang'an began. The market is open. The Imperial Palace. The morning court session ended in a hurry. In Taiji Palace, Li Shimin hurriedly summoned Wei Zheng and the others. How did the discussion last night go? Do you think this contract can be signed? As Li Shimin's voice fell, everyone in the hall couldn't wait to talk about it. Your Majesty, let me tell you. As for this matter, we need to endure it with Zhenla. At the very least, we have to wait until they can't wait any longer. No. Old man Fong, this matter can't be delayed any longer. If this drags on, everything will be over. The retired emperor's birthday is coming soon. If we can perfectly resolve this matter before the birthday, wouldn't the conflict between the emperor and the retired emperor be completely resolved? That's inappropriate. Fang Xianling waved his hand. He cupped his hands and said, Your Majesty, I thought about it last night and felt that there is something missing in this matter. We still haven't received confirmation from Tubo. If we agree to Zhenla first, what if Tubo survives the drought? Li Shimin knew that there were objections. He smiled faintly and said, "Actually, we have also thought about this matter. I didn't sleep at all last night, but I believe that Prime Minister Wei can give everyone a satisfactory answer." He didn't believe that Wei Jing didn't ask about Wei Shuyu last night. Then he wouldn't be Wei Jing. Hearing this, Wei Jing stroked his beard. Unlike the excitement of the others, he was extremely calm now. "I think this matter is feasible. Last night, my son also told me in detail about the conversation between Your Majesty and Brother Zhang Feng. To be honest, I also felt that there was something missing in the middle. As Duke Xing said, there was an important link missing. However, after thinking about it last night, I went to the secretarial office to check the list of tributes from Tubo and other countries this morning. Then I understood. This time, Tubo's tributes are dozens of times more abundant than before. I think they want to reduce the cost of this matter to the lowest during this birthday, and then get the manufacturing method of the water wheel at the lowest price." Hearing this, everyone was shocked. Li Shimin already knew about this. He waved his hand indifferently. "Prime Minister Wei is right about this matter. Therefore, I have decided to summon Prince Zhenla to Taiji Palace later. What do you all think?" Everyone's doubts were cleared. Now, who dared to object? All of them bowed. "Your Majesty, congratulations." "Haha. Someone come, fax Prince Zhenla for an audience. You all also come with me to see this rare grand scene." Li Shimin was in a very good mood. Relatively speaking, he was still a little excited. Originally, these matters were supposed to be handled by the Crown Prince or the Supreme Court. However, this time, because of the importance of this matter, Li Shimin didn't announce it. Instead, he sent someone to inform the Taichung Temple, the Supreme Court, the Guanglu Temple, and the people of the 3 provinces and 6 ministries. A moment later, the officials of the Honglu Temple, the Supreme Court, and the Taichung Temple personally explained the identity of Zhenla. Then, the small yellow door hurriedly led the nervous Shiva into Taiji Palace. Along the way, Shiva's eyes stared straight at the heel of the small yellow door in front of him. He didn't even dare to look around. He didn't know the purpose of this summons, but he could guess a little. However, it was also because of this that Zhang Feng's identity became even more mysterious. After entering Taiji Palace, after passing through 3 large doors and countless crescent-shaped doorways, Shiva finally stopped in front of a magnificent house. The small yellow door lightly knocked on the door and said, "Your Majesty, Prince Zhenla Lamar Shiva, requests an audience." Chapter 161. In the Imperial Study of Taiji Palace. How mysterious was it to Shiva and the entire Zhenla before? But now, he was about to enter this palace. At this time, Shiva was a little nervous. Very nervous. His palms couldn't help sweating. The door was finally opened from the inside. Shiva slowly walked into the hall with a nervous heart that felt like it was going to jump out of his chest. The hall was not big, but it was no less luxurious than the palace of Zhenla. There was at least one imperial study here, which was the study of the Tang emperors. If this place was already so magnificent, what would the hall be like? Shiva couldn't help but quietly raise his head and quickly glance at the hall. The hall was made of mahogany and gold-rimmed phoebe. The room was full of calligraphy and paintings that he couldn't understand. Presumably, these were all extremely precious paintings of the Tang dynasty. There were 5 officials sitting on both sides of the hall. Behind a table covered in yellow brocade sat a middle-aged man in yellow robes. He was looking at Shiva with a dignified expression. The moment Shiva glanced at him, he felt as if he had been seen through by that person. Was this the emperor of the Tang dynasty? This momentum, there was no time to think. Shiva entered the door and hurriedly kowtowed. Lama Shiva, the son of Lama Zoya, the king of Zhenla, pays his respects to His Majesty the Tang emperors. Rise and take a seat. Li Shimin's voice was very faint. Shiva couldn't hear any other meaning from it. But he had a feeling. This summons seemed to have something to do with the tavern. Could it be that the conversation between him and Master Zhang was overheard by the Tang emperor? Or, the person Master Zhang was talking about was His Majesty the Tang emperors? Then, who was Master Zhang? What kind of ability did he have? A little eunuch brought in a chair and placed it next to Qing Yaojin. Shiva didn't dare to disobey. He could only sit beside the bearded Qing Yaojin and wait quietly. Seeing this, Li Shimin chuckled and said, "Your Highness, this is your first time in the Tang dynasty. You don't have to be so cautious. I'm not a man-eating tiger, so relax." Shiva gave his thanks. Seeing him like this, Li Shimin didn't intend to say anything more and directly said, "Last night, I heard an interesting thing. Zhen La seems to have a lot of treasures. But why is it that in the letter I received from your father, he said that you, Zhen La, need the assistance of my Tang dynasty? What does that mean?" It was really Master Zhang. What kind of charm did Master Zhang have? Even the emperor knows so much about it? Could it be? Was it the legendary chamberlain of imperial insignia of Great Tang? Shiva was aghast. He hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, the Tang emperors. Please listen to the details of this matter." He didn't intend to hide it anymore, since the emperor knew he was hiding it. If he angered the emperor, Zhen La wouldn't be able to survive this winter. Now, because of the drought in Tubo, Zhen La had been seriously affected. At this time, most of the people could only rely on fish in the sea and wild vegetables in the mountains to fill their stomachs. If they delayed any longer, winter would come, and Zhen La would be exterminated. Your Majesty, please understand. Because of the drought in Tubo, Zhen La often looted the rich land of our country. Now, most of our people can only rely on wild vegetables and fish to fill their stomachs. Your Majesty, the Tang emperors, please have mercy on us." Li Shimin smiled. If he hadn't gone to Zhang Feng yesterday and learned so much, he would have waved his hand and given a lot of money and food. "I know about this matter. Do you have anything to say about what happened yesterday?" "Your Majesty, please understand. Yesterday, Sister Wang and I went to Chang'an city to take a look at the magnificent scenery of Chang'an city. However, we inadvertently saw the front door of a small tavern. A handsome man was sitting in a strange chair and swaying. In front of him was a flagon that seemed to be made of iron. Wasn't it comfortable? Therefore, Sister Wang and I wanted to find out more about it. Then we saw Master Zhang." Hearing this, Wei Zheng and the others had a strange look on their faces. Seemed to be made of iron? What was that? Why didn't Brother Zhang Feng take it out? But among these people, only Zhang Sun Wuji touched his nose and was calm. Li Shimin glanced at him and understood. He asked, "I've heard about the place you mentioned, but don't you want to talk about the treasure mountain?" Shiva was sweating profusely. "Your Majesty, please allow this humble subject to explain in detail." This humble subject didn't know about this before, but after Master Zhang's advice yesterday, this humble subject was enlightened. However, although these things are good, they are meaningless to our people. What we need is food. Wei Jing narrowed his eyes and interrupted Shiva's words very mysteriously. He asked, "Your Majesty, you know the details. Your Majesty, what you want to know is, how are you going to deal with this matter?" How to deal with it? Did Shiva have a choice now? Last night, he thought that the person Master Zhang introduced might be a small businessman. But he didn't know that the person he introduced was the emperor of the Tang dynasty. Didn't he come here to see the emperor and then solve the famine problem? So, what choice did he have now? Shiva prostrated himself excitedly and said, "Your Majesty, please establish an eternal trade with Zhenla and save our people." Chapter 162. What else could Shiva ask for? Last night, because of this matter, he didn't sleep at all. He discussed with Zhenla's delegation for the whole night, but in the end, they all hesitated. Because if it was an ordinary businessman, how could he have such a great method to solve the crisis in such a short time? And to ensure Zhenla's safety? But now, he only wanted to give everything that Master Zhang said yesterday to the Tang dynasty. He only wanted to let the people live a good life and be free from Tubo's bullying. Li Shimin, Wei Zheng, and the others looked at each other and smiled. It seemed that Brother Zhang Feng had arranged everything well. Li Shimin couldn't help but wave his hand and say, "This matter, just do as you and Brother Zhang Feng said. Someone will discuss the details with you later, but I want a guarantee. Can you make the decision?" He was most afraid of being deceived. He wasn't afraid of Zhang Feng, but he was afraid that a little crown prince would make a decision on his own. If King Zhenla didn't recognize the document of the Tang dynasty when he returned, it would be a little troublesome. Although it was easy to send troops to attack, it would lose Li Shimin's dignity as an emperor. That was why Li Shimin asked. Shiva hurriedly swore, "Your Majesty, please rest assured. The goods you mentioned are useless if they can't be sold. Since His Majesty likes them, I believe that my father will definitely agree to this. Furthermore, before I came here, Father warned me that I must meet His Majesty and save Zhenla. However, those stubborn rocks are everywhere in Zhenla, especially the poisonous salt. That is something that has caused my Zhenla a headache for a long time. Now that the Tang dynasty needs it, how can I refuse? In that case, when the retired emperor's birthday is over, you can go back and bring back King Zhenla's handwritten document. Then, I'll agree to this matter." Li Shimin waved his hand. This matter was finally settled. Although it was a bit of bullying, it could make money. What he lacked most now was money, although it was a little vulgar. However, money was needed everywhere in the Tang dynasty, and he was already struggling to make ends meet. If it weren't for the fact that he sold the water wheel blueprint for a little bit of money, it would still be a huge expense. Just as Li Shimin was about to leave, Shiwa hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, I believe that there is no need to wait until the end of the birthday celebration. Last night, I have already ordered someone to send a message back to Zhenla. I believe that before the birthday celebration, Father's handwritten letter will definitely arrive in Chang'an." "Alright, that's great. Since that's the case, to express our sincerity, my Tang dynasty will immediately send a caravan to Zhenla. If this goes smoothly, I will sign a 100-year trade agreement with Zhenla. How about it?" "Thank you, Your Majesty." Shiva hurriedly bowed. Li Shimin waved his hand, and Shiva left in a hurry. A moment later, Li Shimin asked with a serious voice, "My dear ministers, what do you think of our business relationship with Zhenla? I think it's feasible. If the problem of salt is solved, it will be an unprecedented feat for our Tang dynasty. Congratulations to Your Majesty. Congratulations to the Tang dynasty." Everyone cheered in unison. But then, Du Ruhui and Zhang Sun Wuji looked at each other and said, "Your Majesty, although the matter with Zhenla has basically been settled, once the trade agreement starts, the matter of money. I'm afraid that money is a big problem, but I think it should be enough for the time being. Moreover, this matter will be carried out in Chang'an, and it will definitely attract Tubo's attention. At that time, they won't dare to wait and see anymore. At that time, we can sit back and relax. However, the prerequisite is that before that, we have to shoulder the burden ourselves. This old official is a little worried. Why don't this old official go and ask Brother Zhang Feng?" Du Ruhui and Zhang Sun Wuji said. When Zhang Sun Wuji mentioned Zhang Feng, Li Shimin couldn't help but ask playfully, "Zhao Guogong, what does Brother Zhang Feng's pot look like? Have you seen it before?" "What pot? I don't know." Zhang Sun Wuji played dumb in a very bored manner, and this caused everyone to twitch their lips. They wondered if they should go to Zhang Feng's tavern next time to find a treasure. After everyone left, Empress Zhang Sun came out from the back door of the screen. She looked at Li Shimin and asked worriedly, "Second brother, isn't this a little inappropriate? Although I don't know much about state affairs, this matter is still unknown. Is it really as magical as Zhang Feng said? Are you so sure? Guanyin maid, do you think I still have a way out? Now, money is needed everywhere in the Tang dynasty, whether it's the military expenses at the border or other aspects. This salt is extraordinary. If I don't have it in my hands, I won't be at ease. What's more, Zhenla has a huge amount of salt. Haven't I mastered the art of making salt now? Then think about it. After this year and next year, the Tang dynasty will really enter an era that I dare not imagine. Isn't this what we want? Isn't this what all the people in the world want?" Empress Zhangsun didn't say anything. Looking at Li Shimin's back, which was no longer tall and straight, she felt sad and couldn't help crying. "Second brother, I understand." Chapter 163. Zhang Feng was very relaxed. During this period of time, Lao Li seemed to be very busy with Shen Le's matter. He was so busy that he didn't even pass on the news. But where was Chang'an city? It was right under the emperor's feet. Even the slightest movement of the grass in the wind would be closely watched. These simple people from Guangzhou were scared. They had enough of the precarious life and were tired of war. Therefore, the news that the imperial court had signed a trade agreement with Zhenla spread throughout Chang'an city as if it had grown wings. Zhang Feng, even if he didn't leave the tavern, he could still hear all the so-called gossip from the mouths of the children squatting at the entrance of the tavern. Looks like old Li's ability to get things done is not bad. He really knows how to get the Shangguan family involved. Not bad, he has a bright future. Zhang Feng sipped a mouthful of wine happily and fanned himself. Beside him, there were 3 dirty half-grown children who were rubbing his shoulders or rocking the recliner. That was a very comfortable life. As long as he was willing, he only needed to pay a copper coin for these children to massage his shoulders for a day until they dislocated his shoulders. Brother Zhang Feng. Brother Zhang Feng. I have the latest news. The latest news from the Imperial Palace. At this moment,